Okay, I think we are ready to get started, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And we're going to have a flag salute by Ms. Dana Miller. She's an expert at this. I asked her if she wanted to also sing the Star Spangled Banner, but we'll just go with, yeah, she's got to save her voice. So if you could please join us as she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, could we have the roll call, please?
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Cussworth?
Yes.
Director Lang?
Here.
Director Holt?
Here.
Director Hupper?
Aloha.
Fantastic. All right, and we next on the agenda is special presentations, and we've got a nice crowd here from the sports department. So we're gonna, I think they each have a 15-minute presentation or something to that effect. So Dana Miller, I'll let you tell us how things are going to happen here, but welcome. We're looking forward to a rousing report from the sports teams. And I'm just glad we're having a report. So yes, so it's all yours. Feel free to, yeah. And if you could, just for the record, when you get to the podium, just announce your name and position so everybody else knows when they view this video.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, I'm Dana Miller. I am the sports supervisor, and we are here tonight to present Navigating Through the Pandemic. Good evening, Chair Nichols and members of the board. We're happy to be here tonight to share a snapshot of how we worked with the sports groups, contractors, and the public to provide everything we could through the pandemic. Besides myself speaking about fields, classes, and camps, our reservations coordinator, Andy Morales, and our sports coordinator, Paul McCarter, will also share some highlights. Our reservation clerk, Kathleen Mason, is here, along with our sports specialist, Rob Williams. They're here because they were a huge part of our unit's success. The pandemic came suddenly. It waylaid all regular programming. What was routine in February took on a new meaning by mid-March. Change began mid-March 2020. A stay-at-home order was announced. Field permits, picnic rentals, and sports were suspended. Sad face. Change began mid-March. Per the time frame provided to you, it's up here and it's also in front of you for easier following. The 15 days to slow the spread was announced, followed quickly by the shelter-in-place order. April through mid-June, field permits, picnic rentals, and sports remained suspended. June 12th, youth fitness and sports camps, permits, and picnic rentals are allowed. Organized youth and adult sports are still prohibited. July, new restrictions were issued, once again, suspending many field permits and putting restrictions on picnic rentals. August through December, we took a step forward and two steps backwards a few times. Color tiers were introduced, updated guidelines continued. Picnic and gathering restrictions changed monthly. Organized sports play still prohibited. January 2021, good news. Sports teams could take the field with modifications and acceptable gathering numbers grew. February, the sports risk profiles were updated. Youth and adult teams were back on the field and people in the parks. June 15th, the reopening of California's economy. We no longer had any restrictions. Backing up, within the first 4 months of the COVID-19 timeframe, many community sports organizations realized they wouldn't be able to run their leagues. They canceled their entire 2020 spring permits. The total revenue lost from the return permit hours was $82,248. With a lot of effort, we did fill the vacant hours, accommodating 25 new smaller groups. We also provided 9 fields, 2 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday to CVUSD for sports teams to train and condition. By July, with our regular organizations not on the fields, enter rogue groups. Our posted signage, barricades on the fields, and county guidelines on our social media page, it didn't deter the unpermitted play. We needed a face on the fields, a field patrol. Rob was scheduled 25 hours a week to educate groups per state guidelines and direct them to the reservations office for field permits. Field patrol lasted months and was a thankless job. Rob was an outstanding district representative. Entering the new year, we wanted to reach out and check in on our community sports organizations. We hosted our 2021 Sports Summit via Zoom. We found out how they were holding up, what we could do to help, and shared the district updates. We're excited tonight to report that all 31 of those sports organizations survived, and they're ready to begin their fall season on August 1st. We were heading into a phenomenal 2020 spring and summer. Classes were up and camps were filling. Then bang, mid-March, following the earlier shared time frame, we refunded every 2020 spring class, all summer camps, and mini summer classes. Fortunately, with mid-June 2020 guidelines revised, summer lessons and a few classes were made available. Contractors ran tennis, volleyball, basketball, and more. What a welcome sight. By fall, programming was back on track. We had outdoor Zumba, mountain biking, hiking, and yoga. Winter 21 classes continued to fill. People wanted to be out and active. Our classes were there for them. Spring and current summer numbers show our community is ready to move forward. June 15th could not have come soon enough. Sports are back. Last week, our unit's return was official with our annual 4th of July Home Run Derby. We had 27 participants swinging for the fence at Orchard. It felt great to be back. Andy gets our Picnic Patience Award for countless cancellations of picnics, weddings, reunions, etc. He worked tirelessly to keep the public informed of the ever-changing orders. He will now share his pandemic journey.
Thank you, Dana. In March 2020, the reservations office was preparing for the increase in picnic area requests for spring-summer season. Large company picnics, Easter celebrations, graduations. This is a busy time of the year for reservations. As public health orders were released, patrons were beginning to cancel out of concern of the pandemic. Public gatherings were beginning to be limited or canceled altogether. Revenue that would have been generated by these permits amounted to $27,522. As we navigated through the months of public health orders, some sectors were able to reopen. Small gatherings of 3 households were also given permission with regulations. This led to permits being issued again. Events that were able to take place were wedding ceremonies, church services, and funerals. The blueprint for a safer economy, or more commonly known as tier system, gave us the ability to determine if larger gatherings were able to meet. Once we entered the orange tier, gatherings of up to 200 people were allowed. Permits were being requested in abundance. Graduations, team banquets, wedding ceremonies with receptions. As of June 15th, with the reopening of California's economy, there are no longer restrictions. Patrons are back out at our parks, picnicking in full swing. Each of us dealt with different groups during the pandemic. You have heard the impact on youth sports and picnic rentals. The last chapter of our navigation is adult sports. They were the last to return to play. Paul will now share his highlights.
Thank you, Andy. In 2019, we had over 400 teams competing in softball, basketball, sand volleyball, indoor volleyball, pickleball, cornhole, and soccer. We offered leagues in 4 different seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. 2020 was off to a great start, but was brought to an abrupt halt due to COVID-19. We were forced to stop all league play, with our last game being played in early March 2020. We had to cancel and issue prorated refunds to 55 softball, 30 basketball, 14 volleyball, 26 pickleball, and 14 soccer teams. After we shut down, we remained optimistic that we would soon return to play. We began to take registrations for the spring league, only to find out that we had to cancel the leagues. We repeated the process in anticipation for summer leagues, only to have the same result as spring. After those 2 attempts, we realized that we needed to be patient and wait it out. During this time, I attended weekly Southern California Municipal Athletic Federation Zoom meetings to communicate and share information with other Southern California cities. In March of 2021, 1 year after ending our seasons, we learned that we were able to play outdoor, low-contact sports. We quickly began to prepare for our softball, sand volleyball, cornhole, and pickleball leagues. We needed to rehire monitors, secure officials, and get the word out to the teams. While we were in touch with officials, monitors, and teams during COVID, giving them updates of when we could possibly return, there was always an uncertainty to the exact timeline. When the teams, officials, and monitors learned that we could start up again, everyone was very excited and eager to get out on the fields. As we wanted to start up as soon as possible, we also wanted to make sure we did it the right way, finding out what restrictions needed to be followed and making sure we could comply with the Ventura County guidelines was a key to making sure staff, officials, and participants felt safe. Some of the modifications we made to allow safe play was to use 2 softballs during a game, 1 for each team, sanitizing balls when they went out of play and were returned to the field, increasing times between games so dugouts and bleachers could be sanitized, extending the dugouts into the bleachers to promote social distancing and sanitizing the cornhole boards and bags between matches. In April of 2021, a little over a month after learning we could offer adult sports again, we started our cornhole league with 8 teams. Shortly after that, we started our softball league with 34 teams, sand volleyball with 6 teams, and pickleball with 24 teams. On June 15th, as we were starting most of our outdoor sports leagues, we learned that we were able to open up our indoor leagues as well. We again started the process of securing staff, officials, and recruiting teams. Again, everyone was excited and eager to get out and play. Earlier this week, we started basketball with 24 teams, volleyball with 4 teams, and soccer with 6 teams. As of today, all of our adult sports leagues are back in full swing. We look forward to a great rest of 2021 as we move towards and beyond the numbers we had in 2019. Anna?
That's our pandemic navigation journey. We hope it remains behind us. The financial impact can be seen here. Yes, we took a hit, but no doubt we have a great team and on our way back. This is a 3-year comparison showing in blue our 2018-19 revenue. We did well. Our pandemic revenue is shown in red, which includes refunds and revenue lost. Green, for go, represents this past year, 2021. We're heading in a positive direction. The best part of our journey is coming full circle, seeing kids, adults, park rentals, and events back on our fields. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for your continued support of our unit.
Good information. Thank you so much. I'm going to start on my right here and we'll go with the Director, George Lang.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. Great presentation, and it's so exciting to realize that our community was there and eager to sign up and participate. I mean, we didn't have to, drag them out of the bushes or anything.
Not at all.
There they were waiting for the great CRPD to provide them with these opportunities. Just a couple of quickies. Andy mentioned funerals. Were you talking about memorial services?
Yeah, so it was funeral services, celebration of life,
Okay.
memorials, yes, so those were classified as permissible event, kind of like church service. So yes.
Okay, it caught my attention there. And then cornhole.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to see that that's there. I know, we've got different cornhole courts and so forth setups, but the fact that there's enough interest to have a league and team, I mean, that's terrific. What are you doing to promote that?
We put it on in our book, in the book. We also do social media for that. And then I send out email to all the other sports that teams that play, and then I ask their manager to pass the word along to all of their players.
Okay. Now, is this going to reach a level where CRPD cornhole teams can challenge Pleasant Valley, Rec and Park cornhole teams, Rancho Simi, or anything like that?
That's a possibility. As we grow and get enough teams, and I communicate with the other leagues or the other districts, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Are they broken up in, I'm kind of thinking what the answer is going to be, but I'll ask it. Is it broken up into like different age groups, or cornhole is cornhole?
No, it's opened up to everybody. They all play in one division, and then at the end, I separate them up into a higher and lower division for playoffs. We have a tournament at the end of it, and that's when they actually get broken down into different divisions.
Okay, so Director Huffer and I could join one of those
Absolutely.
teams?
And
Okay.
you be playing these two.
Really? I don't know if, but that's great. And what a great group you have, Dana.
I do.
I mean, their enthusiasm, their willingness to hang in there through the pandemic, and their willingness and ability to get us back on track and to get all this type of activity and action. Really proud of you. Thank you. Keep up the good work, Dana.
Director Cussworth.
Yes, I'm impressed with your team spirit. You're all in uniform. It's wonderful. So to keep with the cornhole conversation, interestingly, just before I came to this meeting, I bought a cornhole set. So I don't know much about cornhole, but I got the 3-foot one, not the 4-foot one. So if I want to become, because it was just look lighter weight and it was a lot cheaper. So if I am going to become a cornhole enthusiast, is that going to affect my game? That I have the 3-foot cornhole, it's 2 foot by 3 feet instead of the 2 foot by 4 feet.
Yeah. Actually, if you set them the proper distance apart, it's probably gonna make you a better player because you have a smaller target to actually aim at.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
So you
good
have
to
less
know.
board to work with.
All righty. So you can come over and practice with me, George, and
Okay.
we'll really be pretty good players.
All right, we're a good team.
So I was wondering about tennis. Do we have any tennis leagues?
Yes,
We do. So were any of those, how many tennis leagues were any of those canceled? Because tennis wasn't mentioned.
it was, everything was canceled at the beginning, and then it came back
So tennis came
right
back?
after pickleball leagues. It was kind of up to the directors if they wanted to run the leagues or not, if they were able, they thought they could get enough interest.
Okay.
People were, ready to play. So our directors checked it with their people, and they weren't ready till a little after pickleball. But yes, there are leagues at Wildflower and at Portrait.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I knew we have a lot of, courts, but I just thought, are they back or not? And I was just curious, how many people are in a pickleball team? Is it 2 or 4?
2.
2, okay. Okay,
They
great.
can
Well,
play single as well. We don't run any single leagues,
okay.
but we have a 24 teams right now in the pickleball league.
Great. Okay, thank you. Great report, very enthusiastic. It's great to see everybody back playing again.
It is.
Director Holt.
Well, I can't add much to what's been said already, but it was an excellent report, and it's great to have all the details, and because we've just been going along with it, whatever. But thank you very much for your report. It was excellent.
Director Huffer.
Dan, I just want to commend you and all of your staff for everything you've had to put up with and go through the last year and a half, and the speed and efficiency with which all of you were pivoting when went from one level to another level and back again, and the rules change here, and a week later they change somewhere else. The way all of you folks were able to keep up with all those changes, and the speed with which you were able to get all these programs back up and running as soon as it was permissible is just really fantastic. So kudos to all of you for what you've done for the sports people in our community. I know what Director Lang was working on. He was hoping that it was based on age so that he would be the only one in his age group and he'd win automatically. But, I did have one question. With all the changes that have been going on, hopefully never again, but in addition to all of our CRPD leagues and programs, have you been communicating with outside sports groups, youth groups, and adult groups as the changes have been happening and letting them know what can or cannot be done?
Our own community groups, our sports groups, or outside of our area?
Inside our area.
Oh, yes.
Our local Conejo Valley sports group.
Yes, I was in communication with them basically almost every turn of every order that came out. Towards the end, we were a little further apart, but in the beginning, I was constant contact emails with them, letting them know what's happening. And like I said, we just finished our fall allocation and it's going to be out, and that all the teams will be starting up on August 1st with their new league, so they all know that they can move forward without restrictions. It's up to each of the groups themselves if what mandates they will put on their own leagues, like wearing masks or not wearing masks and things like that. But per state and county orders, we have passed those along. Yes.
And as a longtime participant, at least one youth sports group, I know we're really looking forward to things returning to some semblance of normal come August. So thanks to all of you for making this possible.
Along those same lines, there'll be 26 smaller groups that won't be so happy everyone's back, because they were very appreciative to be on our fields. So, but we are so happy to have everybody back where they should be.
I too have a few questions. Whether it's the field monitoring to keep people off completely, or just trying to keep things organized, was there a lot of animosity towards the park district and the staff, or towards public health officials, or was it just across the board, or not at all?
There was an extreme large amount of frustration. I'll use the word frustration as opposed to anger, but yes, we got a lot of emails. I know Tom got emails, Jim got emails from different groups, wanting us to do more, and we would encourage them to contact our public officials. And I think we were contacting the COVID compliance ourselves to try and get answers, which they weren't good at getting back to us on, but did the best they could. I'm sure everybody was in the same boat, but I would say there was more patience and understanding than there was frustration. People were frustrated, were really frustrated. And it had to do with, I'm sure, like Chuck knows, that it was coming from the parents within their group, especially when there was all these other organizations or groups, they weren't organizations, on the fields that weren't from here. They were running tournaments, we just couldn't stay up with it.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most frustrating part for our community, was to see them doing what they were supposed to be doing, and then other groups not caring and just coming in and doing whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, we heard about that. I know it was a challenge, so thank you for doing the best you could with that.
Rob took care of them.
You said everything's kind of back on schedule now. With the process that you've gone through to just try and get what you could going, and for those groups that could or couldn't, how has that affected that schedule compared to what it used to be to what it's going to be? Is it like back to what it always was, or has there been some, what I'll just call permanent changes to how you move forward?
No, we are planning to get back on schedule. Everything that we had been doing, we were back in December of 19 with the field allocation, how we do that. It's been a positive experience for all the groups, and we just finished doing that. The only difference will be is that there will be a lot more applications that will not be approved come the next month, because our groups are back on the fields.
Yeah. Okay.
So they got spoiled, and they were told last year that this is open now, but
Yes.
I'm sure they're all going to come back thinking they can just get their weekends or their weeknights, and there won't be any,
Sure.
pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. Back to the priority system and
Yes.
reservation system. And then there's kind of as a takeoff to your, I'll just call them your impromptu groups that are just showing up and doing what they want when they want. I suppose just as long as a field is not allocated or a picnic area is not allocated, people can show up and use those. It's just whether or not it's within that reservation time period. Is that correct?
presently they can, but what we were focusing on when Rob was going out was none of our fields, they weren't closed, but they were open, but there was no organized sports were allowed.
Okay,
And that's what we were, Rob wasn't physically chasing them off. He was just directing them and educating them on why they couldn't be there and what they needed to do to be there.
okay,
So, but currently, now, yes, if people can show up and if someone has a reservation, they have to get off. But yes, our parks are open.
okay. Because I know there's some, I wouldn't call them organized and that they're officially organized, but you have, I'll just call them a Wednesday night group that shows up at a certain park every night to play soccer.
Yes,
And it's, an informal organization or whatever that happens to be.
yes.
And that's, as long as they're on a field, it's not reserved, they can still do that, right?
Yep, as long
okay.
as they're not taking up any ASO 9 space at
all right,
Canal Creek
all right.
South,
Okay.
piggybacking off their lights. But
And as
yes,
a result of this, is there any new sports leagues that have come that you didn't have before? Just like they kind of filled a gap and now they're going to continue to try, whether there's options for them or not, I don't know, but has there been some, I guess, some good that came out of this, the new organizations or new sports teams?
we've had, field hockey is trying to get a little more involved. We have cricket. They've
Okay.
been around and just been showing up on those fields like you're talking about, but they actually are now a nonprofit organization and they're out at Pepper Tree on Saturdays right now. And they would like to become part of the fold and actually maybe run some classes and things like that. So field hockey was around a couple of years ago. They kind of faded off. And then as it was getting back into the Olympics or getting into the Olympics, they kind of came back. We'll be having a field hockey summer camp
Mhm.
this summer. So those two for sure. Lacrosse is getting bigger and rugby is a part of our organizations, but they're small. They're
Mhm.
only Tuesday, Thursday. They don't play their games here.
Okay,
They just practice.
okay. And then lastly, lessons learned as you look back and you say, gosh, if we ever had to do this over again, heaven forbid. Any lessons learned either that you say, hey, we learned something and we can improve our program, or if this does happen, what we would do? Anything that jumps out at you? Or was it such a well-oiled machine that you just kind of kept doing what you're doing?
I think what we learned probably was that I think in all of our minds, I don't know about everyone in this room, but kind of in my mind, when everything first started in March, I think our normal impression was, oh, it'll just be a few months. So it even was kind of put out there that we're going to, as you saw in the time frame, we're going to suspend things for a month. And then we even actually gave a date. And then the next month we would give a little more. So moving forward, I think we wouldn't give any time frames. We would just give a non-ending date. But as updates are given and orders are received, that we will be able to get you back on the field. So that might have added to some of the frustration that you asked about.
Yeah.
Chair Nichols?
Well, sure. I think we all experienced that where a 2-week, to slow the curve, it turned into 18 months.
Yeah.
And we're still not through with it all yet. So yeah, I think we're all frustrated for many reasons. And, for those of you who have responsibilities to organize and schedule and to, help accommodate when those rules are constantly changing, it makes it frustrating for you too.
Right.
So thank you for tolerating all that and continuing to do so. Director Lang.
Yeah, thank you, Director Nichols, Chair Nichols. 2 questions came to mind or comment. One, badminton, where does that stand? The Badminton League back?
They are yes, TO Badminton Club or organization. They now are a nonprofit. They are back, happy to be back at Sycamore Gym. They will be starting their league up. They might have just started, right? Last Friday was their first permit at Sycamore, and they will start running lessons for us in the fall. But right now they just have their own club play.
Have any of you interfaced with Creighton Van Horn?
No, just Ming. He's my
Okay.
contact.
He's very involved with the badminton group, and he, as a teenager, he was ranked number 1 in the country for a number of years. So
Wow.
I know he's teaching classes too, or he plans to, something like that.
Oh.
And my last comment was, and it kind of came into the conversation. And then looking over there and seeing the soccer groups primarily out there, back with their teams and cones, etc. It just makes the park, it's not only the fact that it's providing the activity and the league sports for these kids, but it also just kind of makes the park feel alive, when you see the colorful uniforms and the cones. And so it's great. I'm glad that you're back on top of everything.
Like I said, for the presentation tonight, give us a little update, but for your continued efforts. I know
we have been involved with the process with the city and their general plan update, very involved. But there's things that are, for lack of a word, beyond our scope of abilities and our knowledge, like the land use and policy reviews. And, as you know, too, that the city's general plan is looking to change how the housing in the city is, and lots of things are changing with the city's general plan update. And how they are positioning themselves for future growth. And that's something that we want to do in unison with the city of Thousand Oaks and the general plan update, is update our master plan and provide appropriate comments for the city's general plan, because what they do and where they put residences and businesses greatly affects our master plan and how we serve the community. So we thought, in order to have it to have a better perspective, that we should hire an outside consultant to help us with this, so we can do this in unison with the city's general plan update. So we have before you is a recommendation to hire our RRM Design. Tonight we have Lance from RRM Design. He's available for comments. He's on Zoom. RRM has done quite a bit of work with us, like at McCrae Ranch and at Sopwee and the Teen Center expansion. They've also done a lot of work with the city of Thousand Oaks also. And then on top of that, they do have a planning element that provides a lot of expertise for general plan updates that they've done with other agencies throughout the state. The contract is formatted so that RM would look at the general plan update, kind of get familiar with it, give us some recommendations on to respond to, and also updating our master plan that we have. So it's again in conjunction with the two. Cool. And yeah, that's my outgoing music. So those are those two things, the two phases that we would, contract with RM for. But then as this plays out, there might be future phases to be determined, and we come to the board with any potential future actions. So I'm available for questions, and again, Lance is on. He has zoomed in, and he's available for questions too.
Thank you. I see Director Holt has a hand up, so we'll start with her.
I was just wondering on the timing of this, because the city has not completed exactly what they're going to be doing. But you're suggesting we hire them now and pay them this amount of money.
Correct.
But they won't be able to really focus on this until the city comes up with.
Correct. And rather than it's a very good question. Rather than we're being reactionary and the city says, here, we're done. We want to be part of the process rather than saying, here, we're done. And then I disagree, or can you guys change this or do this? Rather than being we're adversarial or reactionary, we'd rather be we are part of the process now. We'd rather be more part of the process so we can shape our vision for the community, for Parks and Rec, along with the city's vision, so we can dovetail together.
That's a great concept, but I mean, is that where we're at with the city right now?
Yes.
Okay, so because the city is having problems, they're not 100% for some of the suggestions.
Oh, sure. And that's what we just want to be a part of that. And again, rather than being reactionary, if the city rather than them making a decision, then we say, okay, now what are we going to do? We'd rather have
some input
on what happens and how, because whatever they're doing is going to greatly affect us on the densities and the locations of housing and the locations of businesses. That'll greatly affect our master plan and how we can serve the public.
Well, this contract, though, if we approve the contract, would be paid right away.
No. As we use RRM is how we would pay them.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Director Cusworth.
So this is a question for Lance. Does he hear me? I don't see him.
Lance Romance.
And also Mr. Hare can comment.
Sure.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So is your plan to completely revise and redo our master plan to update it, or are you just planning to take the master plan that we have and maybe add a few updates to it? What do you usually do? We've seen you at McCrae and Sopwee and designing parks, but we haven't had experience with you in designing a plan. So do you kind of revamp the entire plan, or do you look at our plan and just put in a few updates? What is your plan?
So the way we drafted our scope is to not do a complete rewrite of the plan, but to update the numbers, figures, update the needs assessment, and then update the implementation and funding resources and allocations. and then give recommendations to you guys on what we can try to do with the city and making sure that the goals and actions of the master plan are consistent with the city's general plan.
Yeah, the biggest, excuse me, the biggest thing, like to put it in Lance was always so technical, is the master plan generally sets like what we have now, and then it looks what is the vision for the future, and with the city potentially changing what their vision is for the future, that changes us. So that's where we're relying on them to, as far as the master plan goes. Again, they'll be helping us with our input to the general plan, which then affects our master plan. So it's not a complete, we're not looking for it, like Lance was saying, it's not a complete rewrite. It's more of a, because 10 years ago when we did this in 2011, it was the city said, here's where we are, here's where we think we're going. Here's where we believe we're going, not think we're going, where we know we're going. And now it could be somewhere in the future, over here, over there. So they're going to help us guide us and comments on the city's vision of which way we're going to go. And then as a result of that, that affects our master plan for our vision.
So Lance, how are you going to do this? Are you going to be talking with the city council? Are you going to be talking with the company that is designing their master plan? Are you going to be working with them personally, or are you going to be just talking with our staff and ask them what they know? How involved are you going to be getting with the city?
Well, we're going to work with you guys to ensure that we're getting what you guys want for your community first. Once we do that, we'll have a better understanding of what we need to do to start discussing this with the city as they start moving forward with whether they're with their update to the general plan, update to the housing element, and update to any zoning that might come from all of those efforts.
So will you be personally working with the city and personally be working with the people that are updating their general plan?
Yes, we would like to have some kind of team meetings together to kind of discuss where we're at and where we're going.
Okay, thank you.
Director Huffer.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it in here. What sort of time frame are we looking at, Tom? I mean, is this something that's going to happen over a few months, a few years, something in between, or?
It depends, exactly.
Presumably it's going to be somewhat tied to the city's time frame.
Yes, exactly.
We want to get our 2 cents worth in before the city presents the community with the finished
Correct.
product.
Yes, I think Lance said it best when he's saying, he'll try to get, or he got a pretty good, he'll get talk to us, get a very good understanding of what we want out of this. And then we'll communicate with the city again, like you said, to get our 2 cents in. But as far as the timing goes, a lot of it has to depend upon the city and how fast their process is for the general plan update.
Okay. And to address the question that Director Holt had, this would be almost more like a retainer.
Yeah, it's like a time and material contract. It's not a generally when we do consultants for like the teen center expansion, we say this is what we want, and then they give us a proposal. It's going to cost X amount of dollars to give you those construction documents to put out the bid. This one's a little bit more conceptual because we don't know. So that's why it is a time and material basis.
Okay. And I believe you made the comment that although we have experience with RRM in several specific projects, that RRM as a firm does have experience in similar tasks in helping, whether it's, I don't know if it's just park districts or other special districts in working on planning.
Yeah,
longer range planning.
Very similar situations with other government agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Director Lang.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Chair Nichols. And thank you, Tom and Lance, for tackling this. I see this as a very positive. It's an opportunity for CRPD to get on board ASAP with the city, where we've got a seat at the table. We're just like another department within the city. And so we're going to be constantly, Lance is going to be constantly interfacing with other city department heads, et cetera, et cetera. So I just see this as a smart move, timely move, and we're ready to, act on it when, at the timing with the city works. So I think it's a good one, Tom.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. First of all, Lance, you can maybe help us with this. There was a question or actually comment about your experience with special districts. With this type of a process, how much experience do you have in working with Rec and Park District in association with a city in trying to meld this process together?
We've worked with cities specifically drafting different elements of the general plan. So the master plan, you could approach it as sort of the same thing, or it's with the city of Thousand Oaks, they're using it as their recreation element. So we understand the direct correlation between the recreation needs of a community and how to implement those needs into actions and policies with implementation measures and then funding measures, so that it's an easy document to use by the city to ensure that moving forward, all of that, the city's getting what they want in a way that is usable by all. And so with like your district specifically, or our experience with other districts, it's kind of the same thing as just another agency of the city, or working with a recreation department or a parks department, for example.
Can you provide any examples of Rec and Park districts that you have worked with in the same fashion to coordinate a general plan update? Or it doesn't even have to be general plan update. It could just be preparation of a recreation element as part of the city's general plan.
Yeah, we're currently working with American Canyon on their general plan update, which is including their recreation element.
American Canyon, I'm not familiar with them. Are they a special district or a city?
That's a city, and that's a comprehensive general plan update. We've worked with the Hayward Recreation Park District with a lot of their master planning. And with that, we're identifying funding resources, and we've actually, beyond just master planning for them, we've done community outreach. We've done, I think we're on our third actual park constructed park project after we did the whole master plan and outreach efforts.
Okay, and then in reviewing the exhibit, which has your scope of work, when it comes to deliverables, I see a lot of reference to reviewing meetings, visions and things like that. As far as a tangible item, will these result in memos, in recommendations that are written, or reports? How will that be conveyed to the board?
Yeah, these will be in like a memo format where we provide our kind of research and analysis and what our recommendations moving forward would be. And then we'd like to get your feedback on what we found and kind of move forward there. And we'll probably look at what other cities have done and what may work for you guys, or what has worked for other cities as well.
Okay, and I also notice that there's a reference to the GIS database and preparation of base maps for the master plan. Will that be, in essence, a reflection, or I guess a combination of the city's data, because we don't really have a GIS department here, that's a reflection of the park district and the master plan, which in essence is the recreation element.
Correct.
And you folks will provide that map, I guess, then that will, I presume, be introduced as a part of the general plan.
Correct. I believe we could work with the city in getting the GIS data. It's generally available. And so working with them, then we could look at what the general plan update map is once that gets adopted. And then we could work on the recreation mapping open space and stuff that we'll be looking at. And then that'll help us look at, you know, the walkability, the adjacency of neighbors, the densities in direct relation to how far those are to different parks and open spaces.
Okay, and then to our staff here, whether it's you know, Jim or Tom, when it comes to having received this information, whether it be the GIS data or the memos or whatever that happens to be, does it then come to the board for adoption approval, and then you take that to the city to say this is what the board is recommending? How does that interaction process work?
Yeah, I don't know that we've actually specifically thought about what we would do because we don't know exactly what kind of information we're going to find out yet. But you know, we have a habit of and make it a practice to keep the board informed of what we're working on and what we're doing. And, you know, they have the city will have put out its land use map, and it's currently working on the other elements. So part of this is going to be navigating around and with the city's new maps, and you know, we'll be measuring things like, you know, how many people are likely to come out of new mixed use densities, and how many feet are those from the nearest park walking distance wise, and if not close enough, do we say that we have to have a park in a certain location? So that kind of information is what we hope we'll get working with RM out of this. But you know, exactly how we'll be going back and forth with the board, whether we end up, you know, 6 months, 9 months down the line saying, okay, we need an ad hoc committee to tell the city whether we want a specific certain number of acres here or there or the other thing. I'm not quite sure exactly how we'll do that.
Okay.
Something to figure out.
Well, I understand we're not in the driver's seat in this process, but we're trying to drive our own process in it. So I understand there's going to be a little reactionary there to some degree. Okay, thank you.
I think we could help you with our recommendations on how to approach the conversation with the city as well. So once you guys meet together and discuss kind of the recommendations and findings that we have, then we can help you with that conversation with the city or what our approach might be.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions of Lance or of staff? Okay. Well, again, thank you, Lance, for being with us. So
Thank you.
With that, let's see what, get back to my page 1 here. We have a recommendation to authorize the general manager for this. So unless there's any questions, I'll entertain a motion. Director Lang?
Yes, I so move the staff recommendation authorizing the general manager to enter into these contracts with RM Design.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that? All right, Director Hupper is a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And again, thank you, Lance, for being with us this evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Okay, next is 9.
contact with California Skate Parks, who is a very reputable company who's done a lot of work throughout the world. Even when we were trying to set up meetings, they were over in Tokyo, preparing for the Olympics. They were all over the places. A lot of fun. So we finally got to meet them and introduce them to the focus group. And we really liked. They liked what we did as far as our concepts were that we had. Had some really good ideas. We felt there was a really good team that we could work with, and even their lead staff member, who used to be on his own, he actually did the skate park at Sopwith, and he also did he also worked as a sub. He was a sub to RM on both on Sopwith and the teen center for the little skate areas there. A guy named Zach Wormhout, who's now a staff member for California Skate Parks. So we felt really comfortable with them. So we asked them for a proposal. There was a 3-phase approach. The first phase is just for designing to more refinement and more public outreach and estimated services for how much construction is going to cost. If we move forward past phase 1, we'd bring it to the board, and like phase 2 and 3, we're going for construction documents and board approval. And they're also a builder of skate parks, so that'd be the phase 3. So between each phase, we would take it for board approval. California Skate Parks is also a member of Sourcewell, which is an organization that provides cooperative purchasing agreements for government agencies and other agencies, of which we are a member, so we can contract directly with California Skate Parks. So we're really excited. The focus group's really excited to move forward with this and see where this takes us. So we hopefully in 6 months or so, 6 months to a year, we could have a pretty good, more refined concept and have the ability to move forward with construction drawings for building of the skate park, again, which we would bring to the board before we would move forward. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Have any questions of Mr. Hare? Yes, Mr. Director Hupper.
I'll be the first to admit that I wouldn't know a cool skate park from a really dumpy skate park. So hopefully between the consultant and the special interest groups that you've been working with, that they know what they're looking for.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Both Andrew and I say, being 6'6", 250 pounds each, we don't get on skateboards, and we don't know. We've got professional skaters on the focus group. We have moms and dads of little skaters. We have a dad of a professional skater who lives in the area. We have an architect, who's just very interested. It's a great cross, and they all love skating. And Andrew and I are just like, sure. Like when they tell us, it looks cool to me, but I'm not going on a skateboard.
And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but to see that there's a company that specializes just in skate parks. I'm sure there are companies that specialize in just about everything. This particular recommendation is for the phase 1, but assuming everything in phase 1 goes as hoped and anticipated, would California Skate Parks also be involved in phases 2 and 3?
Correct. Yes, they can design and build, so they could go from soup to nuts on this. So that's why. And yet, so this action tonight is only for $26,800, which is below it's done under Jim's authority. But we want to present this to the board, that because this potentially could be a much greater financial commitment from the district. So rather than coming to you, a year from now and go, oh, we already use these guys, how about another? We want to present it to you now for potential future financial encumbrances.
Okay. And then the final question I have, a year or two, whatever down the line, when this project, assuming the project gets completed, I know he likes to test out all of the various recreational facilities. And I assume that Andrew will be testing out all of the pipes and whatever they have there.
I guarantee you no. Okay, thank you.
Director Lang?
Yes, Tom, your comment about the
I will let-
focus group and so forth. What first comes to mind is we had at least one meeting and maybe two on this topic a number of years ago, and I don't know, 30 some people that showed up in support, and you mentioned moms and dads and so forth. That made it, to me, a real positive communication, the fact that we've got these moms and dads and so forth willing to support their kids in the skate park and skateboards, because so many people years ago looked down at the skateboarders and so forth. And CRPD, as we know, many years ago, came up with this project and made it a reality, which brings to mind this little artist rendition of the skate park. First of all, that just kind of a stock photo or something, or how did these different elements show up in that?
So that's so for the actual, so this was again, the brainstorming of the focus group. Let me back up just for a second. Your comment about the moms and dads, real good shout out to Weston, who's Weston Montgomery, who's no longer with CRPD, but between the relationships that Weston and Kurt developed with the skaters, the moms, the kids, everybody is just fantastic, where they're always, because that was one of the big things when we met was, well, we don't just want 5 pro skaters because they're going to do their thing, and actually some of the, and actually I just remember one of the, it was kind of interesting. One of the skaters is 24 years old, and it's kind of neat that, and he's actually acquaintances now with my son, and hey, you remember my son Elvis? And he's like, oh yeah, like they went to elementary school together. But it's kind of, so we've got the 50-year-old pro skater, and then we've got the 24-year-old pro skater. So we've got everything. But again, big shout out to Kurt and Weston for helping us put all these people together. So as far as this is concerned, what came up, the concept plan, this is what we decided, and they're talking about their vertical areas and the plaza areas and gatherings and beginner areas, and it's awesome. But this is actually, these are CAD drawings, and this, Andrew didn't even develop this one. This was developed by one of our focus group members. Him and Andrew worked together on it because this was his contribution. He was a dad of a skater, so he was able to do the CAD drawings on this and help out Andrew on this.
So the potential footprint of this new skate park, as we kind of see it envisioned, how does that compare with the current footprint?
It's about double the area.
Okay.
So if you look, it's faint, but if you look at the aerial, there's just behind it, like if you go from like the gathering area towards the maintenance area, that's parking right now. And it doesn't really get used that much. And then the maintenance area is not necessarily for the skate park, but because that whole parking area along Orchard Road, park staff uses that for a lay down area for equipment or material as when they're refurbishing. So because it's a very I don't say undesirable, but not a lot of people like to park there. So park staff use that a lot for stuff. So we said, hey, well, let's just use that for skate area then and formalize the maintenance area.
That was going to be one of my questions, what takes place in a skate park maintenance area?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a parks maintenance area.
Yeah.
But we're again more formalizing it so it doesn't look like just a bunch of sand in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the next step for the development of the skate park. And I think based on our current parks and offerings for different sports and so forth, it's just going to be another feather in CRPD's cap. So I'm glad to see, us making this, first step and looking to the professionals, those who really know, because I know when we first developed our skate park, it wasn't a non-professional decision, but there were a lot of decisions that were, we were relying on our local skaters and so forth. So
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Good job,
It's
you
good.
and
Thank you.
Andrew.
Yeah, and then just aside for Chuck, because Rochelle whispered that she will take the inaugural spin on her roller skates. I don't know, do you do
Oh.
skateboard or not? Okay, so roller skates. Yeah, and you can have the first push up or down the ball, Chuck.
Director Cuthbert.
So an Olympic designer is doing our skate park. I think that's pretty cool. They should know what they're doing. And I don't have any experience with professional skaters, but I do have experience with a 9-year-old scooter skater, my granddaughter. And so I've taken her to skate parks, just the one at Sapway, and that looks like a lot of fun. So Rochelle, I'll join you on a scooter. Okay. You're on roller skates, I'm on a scooter. My question is, the other thing I wanted to say is I noticed that when the playgrounds were down, we started getting a lot more scooter use in our parks. I even saw at Thousand Oaks Park, they had a scooter club. So I think parents were trying to think of creative ways to get their kids together, being somewhat socially distanced because they're on a scooter, and they would scooter all over the place. So there may be more interested kids on skateboards and scooters now, due to that for the last year, that was an acceptable activity in the parks, especially when the playgrounds were closed. My question is, I'm assuming that the Borchard Skate Park is still in service right now?
Yes.
Okay, so how long is that going to be closed down to build this new one?
Again, depends. We're on step 1 of 100 right now. So this would if the board, we would go to construction documents after this, and then we would talk about construction, then that'd be phase 3. So we're a good ways away from
So
that.
you said that just phase 1, what we're doing now, would be about 6 months from now.
Yeah, 6 months to a year, because we still want to do some public outreach and with this company to try to figure out exactly that we have a good concept, but believe me, again, like Chuck was saying, I don't know about skating, and it's amazing how detail oriented they get. Like just for example, I'll give you 2 examples for this one. They were talking a lot about they don't want a brand new skate park. They want, it was almost like the history and education. They want a new skate park with the old Borchard skate park feel to it, if that makes sense. Because they talk about, I miss that thing. Like this is the favorite little corner. So we need to replicate that favorite little corner on the new one. We can't just go bam and clean it. And look at this brand new sparkling new. They said you're going to lose all the people that have been skating there for 20 or 30 years, because that's why they go there, because they love this skate park. So we have to incorporate the old into the new. And then another big thing to mention about this, which I thought was a really great idea, and I can even understand this one. The current skate park, I don't want to say it's small, but when Borchard does camps or lessons, they have to shut down the whole skate park, and there's no free skate going on. So the size of this, if you say where it says beginner area, they can have lessons on one side, and they're talking about a physical barrier between the two that will separate the open skaters and those lessons. But then when it's wide open for everybody, those physical barriers are actually skate park elements. That makes sense. So it's kind of neat. I love it. It's so much fun to learn about what's going on. Again, I'm not getting on a skateboard, but it's so much fun to learn on how all their brains work about this, and so it's a joy to work with the group.
So is the reason that you are instead of just expanding the skate park, you're redoing the whole skate park because the current skate park is old and needs repair, and so you just want to take it all out?
Old and repair, and for lack of a better word, outdated. there's different styles that happen with skate park. There's urban skating. There's as you could talk about, like you said, like these vertical areas. There's different styles and different trends that go to the skate park. So we're trying to blend them all together. One of the comments we heard about the current skaters is, "Hey, we really love this park, but it's definitely an early '90s park." You can tell by the elements that are in there. And we'd like to incorporate newer elements that are out there.
And so I guess at this point, we don't have any idea on how much this is going to cost.
No,
We're just going with the 26,000.
Right, and that would be the end of phase one. So because California skate parks can do, I said, from the soup to nuts with this, what they would come up with is a conceptual design and a cost estimate. So they would say, okay, if you want me to go to the next step, this is what I can do for you, and this is how much it would cost to build the project.
Thank you.
Director Hupper.
Yeah, I just brought a couple more questions to mind. Do we have a placeholder somewhere in our 10-year capital budget
Yes.
with some kind of figure?
Year 3. Yes.
What could you refresh my memory?
Oh, sure.
What-
Sure. We budgeted it for $1.5 million for the total project. We said it was $1 million. $1 million of our own money and $500,000 of community money / sponsorship. We've already been talking to a sponsorships in the community on how to raise the money, and so we're hoping to move a little bit. If this happens, as combined with our public outreach that we're going to be doing, we're going to be ramping up our efforts for fundraising.
Okay, and you were briefly talking about the history of the existing skate park before I was on the board, but am I recalling correctly, and I can't remember his name now, but a relatively young guy who was park planner 10 or 15 years ago, wasn't he a skater?
Yeah, Lauren was a skater. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
Lauren
Lauren
Pluth.
Pluth. Yep. He was a skater.
I thought I remembered.
Yeah.
that.
When we come to the next good conceptual, I will definitely. I still keep in contact with Lauren every now and then. I will send him. So he'll be jazzed that we're doing
cool.
this.
All right, thank you.
Good memory.
Yes.
Now I'm done.
All right, if no other questions, we have a recommendation here. Do we have a motion? Yes, Director Cusworth?
So I enthusiastically recommend that we
Yay.
authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with California State Parks for the total amount of $26,800 for phase 1 in design.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you. All right, next we go to item 9C regarding another agreement. General Manager Friedel.
Thank you, Chair Nichols and members of the board. This is an item regarding the district's revenue measure that we've, I'll take a quick trip down memory lane since I have it here in the staff report. And wow, in June of 2019, we actually held a study session to talk about options and alternatives to generate revenues necessary for CRPD to continue to maintain and improve the level of public facilities and services. So during that meeting, we then created an ad hoc committee of directors Cusworth, Vice Chair Cusworth, and Huffer were put on that committee and have been working with staff ever since. So we went out and did an RFP process in later that summer, and then 6 months later in January of 2020, we finally selected our professional consultant. It was the Wildan team with FM3 and Lou Edwards. But if you notice that date, January 16th of 2020 was not the time to embark on a kind of a revenue measure effort that we'd envisioned. So we had, worked with the ad hoc committee, and we put everything on hold for a while until, I don't know, maybe December of 2020. We started to talk about whether it was worth, getting ready to dust things off and resume some of the work on the revenue measure. So we got back in touch with Wildan, and we started doing a little bit of work again, and we went ahead and had Wildan go ahead and work with FM3 to do some of the survey work to get a better sense of whether this was something worth spending time on. And basically the conclusion there is that the, measure that we're contemplating, a community facilities district, would require a 2/3 vote, and that we do have some reason to be optimistic, though a 2/3 vote is a very high hurdle, and that optimism, has to be kind of measured in the sense that it is a high bar to cross. So what we do know now is there's reason to be hopeful. There's work to be done. And, if we were going to go out and ask the voters, there's probably some more time for us to take before we would actually consider doing something. So really all we're saying is we have an existing contract. We've spent about 60,000 of the 150,000 in the contract. So we do have quite a headroom with the ongoing contract. We would, if we are allowed to continue, the staff gives us the authorization, we'll start to continue to work with the committee and the consultants and return to the board when they have a better sense of whether this is something we're prepared to put on the ballot. So that's kind of where we are. And if the board has any questions, I'm gonna go for questions.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Hupper, Director Hupper.
So there weren't any numbers in this cover memo that you prepared, but Jim, you said this is already covered by the existing contract that we have with Wilderness. It just basically continue what the board had approved a year and a half ago.
Yes, precisely. So just like Tom will stage the contracts with touch points for the board, one of the things that's in this contract is that, before we proceed to the next task, we'll kind of revisit with the board. So that's where we're at. We're revisiting, we finished tasks 1 through 3 in the contract, and we're getting ready to hit tasks 4, 5, and 6. So
okay, but we're not approving any additional funding. It's just continuing the contract that's already been approved.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Director Cuthbert.
So will you refresh my memory, even though I'm on the ad hoc committee and I should know what task 4, 5, and 6 are?
So, well, we're doing task 4, board presentation. 5 is the creating and establishing the CFD and actually conducting the election, and task 6 is the public information and outreach plan. So those 3 tasks are what we'll be working on.
Okay.
So the next time the full board would probably hear, well, the committee will be regularly updated and participate in, the work ongoing, but the board, we can touch base maybe in 6 months, and then probably another 6 months after that. So I would contemplate we're still, quite a ways away from actually, probably more than a year from deciding whether we'd like the voters to weigh in.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Director Hupper.
Yes, I'd like to move approval of staff recommendation to authorize staff to proceed with the professional services agreement with Wildon regarding the formation of the community facilities district and related revenue measure.
Thank you. You have a second for that?
Second.
All right, we've got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, item 9D is manufactured home purchase. So do I go directly to Administrator Hare on this one? All right.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Chair Nichols, members of the board. This manufactured home, and I don't think I put it in the report, but this ranch manager's house was part of the approved improvements that we had between us and the city of Thousand Oaks and our lease agreement that we have with Ride On at Rancho Potrero Community Equestrian Center, just letting you know. But so in order to try to move forward the process of purchasing the manufactured home, it very similarly, the city of Thousand Oaks, when they were in control of Rancho Potrero Equestrian Center and Ride On was the operator there, they had a caretaker's unit that they have purchased maybe 12, 14 months ago. And actually, I think it's due to arrive very shortly. And that could be on the east end of the property for installation. So when they did that process, the process they had was they went through, they looked at numerous vendors and they examined warranties and service obligations and the purchase price and performance of the unit. And so they determined that Factory Select Homes was the appropriate vendor to use for the purchase of the manufactured home. So very similarly, we did the same thing to copy their process or use the results of their process. And so we consider a manufactured home like a special piece of equipment. It's not something that we regularly order in bulk. So again, we want to copy the results of their process in order to match the existing caretaker's unit. And then with the ranch manager's house, if you look at the little map that's provided there too, would be located more on the west end of the property. And so this would be very crucial to the maintenance and operations and security of the property because they would have employees living on site on both the east end and the west end of the property. With that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, Director Cuthbert.
Okay, so just to clarify, currently the caretaker's home is there.
Not yet, very shortly.
Okay, so so obviously there's nobody living in that, and the city already bought that.
Correct.
Okay, so I think that answers my question. So then, or I guess, how long is it going to take for us to get the ranch manager house?
It's about a 12 to 14 month process.
You probably said that.
Yeah.
So are we going to have a caretaker in there soon?
Yes. Yes.
And then what's the difference between the two jobs? Do they have different jobs?
Yeah, the caretaker is more, I don't want to say a lower level, a lower level position. They're actually doing a lot of the maintenance work, and the manager is just that he's managing the whole process. The caretaker would be more of an on-site, on-site maintenance and operations, and then the ranch manager actually managed all of the operations there at the Rancho Ventura Community Question Center.
And like a handyman type thing?
Yeah, the caretaker is more of a handy. I mean, probably a little bit bigger than a horseshoe handyman. Yeah. Yeah.
But it'd be similar to, I mean, we have caretakers at
we have
the hotel.
Chumash, McRae, Stagecoach.
Yeah.
We have caretakers at several facilities, and then even at Farland House, we still call it like a caretaker's unit because they're taking care of the house that's there. Where the ranch manager will probably have more responsibilities as far as the like administrative responsibilities for the ranch.
So I think it was still my turn before everybody interrupted me. So my question, I was going to ask that, is this the same as McRae, et cetera, which you said it is. My next question is, are we going to be hiring new people, or do we already have staff that's going to go into
No,
these
okay,
homes?
yeah, this is, I apologize. I knew you might be going, no, this is ride-on employees.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, this is ride-on employees, not CRPD employees.
okay. And so Ride-On is the one that is giving them wages.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And now anybody else can talk. My turn is over.
Any other questions? Director Huffer?
So the ranch manager would be a Ride-On employee, but have they already identified this individual, or is this somebody they're in the process or waiting to hire?
They're waiting to hire. As part of our lease agreement with them, we have the ability to weigh in on who their ranch manager is.
Okay, but they're anticipated just, I was thinking of the caretakers, and it's like just one individual. I don't think any of them are even married, are they?
Of our different facilities.
But regardless,
Yeah,
1,300 square
Yeah.
feet with 3 bedrooms, that's probably somebody maybe with a family or something,
Yeah.
as opposed to,
Mhm.
okay. And the pictures that you had in there, I'm assuming the top picture was the default or the factory orientation, and for whatever reason, we're expanding some and going
Correct,
from 4
yes.
bedrooms to 3 and
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you generally with these type of homes, they give you the shell and they say, and where do you want this? Do you want this a little bigger, a little smaller?
okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Director Huffer?
I'll move approval of staff recommendation to award the purchase of manufactured home from Factory Select Homes in the amount of $157,050 for Rancho Patero Community Equestrian Center.
Thank you. And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on forward. Let's see. I'd like to recommend a short 5-minute break. I see Director Cusworth has also got the same idea. And then we will come back with starting at 9 and 9E and the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Okay, we're going to reconvene the board meeting. Next up is going to be item 9E regarding an ad hoc committee. So I will go to our general manager
Yes,
first.
thank you, Chair Nichols and members of the board. Mr. Mooney and Mr. Hare did a bunch of work trying to respond to the board's request for items for subsequent agendas at a not too long ago meeting. This is our stab at responding to that request, and Mr. Hare is going to provide a report.
Oh, thank you. That's the longest introduction you've ever given me. So let's start off with why was this our recommendation for an ad hoc committee? And this was a fun thing to kick around with Andrew and Jim and everybody else on like, what are we doing and how are we doing it? We had lots of different ideas, but what I really want to emphasize, and I'll believe me, I'm going to say it 3 times tonight. So everyone realizes what we're doing. It's about the process. Okay. That's what we're talking about tonight, is the process to come up with a solution. And that's not to say that tonight I really encourage board members to provide discussion. You know, if there's something that is so totally out of left field that they like, no, I don't want this, or I want to go this way or whatever. So in my mind, in speaking for the potential ad hoc members, that they get some sense of where the board wants to go. But again, it's about the process. We're not gonna figure out exactly where we want to put pickleball courts tonight, because there's like as we discussed, there's so many options, there's so many things to do. So I want to discuss how we want to get there, and that's why we think the end result of this will be getting an ad hoc committee together to maybe narrow down the field and come back to the full board, and whatever the process is that we come up with the ad hoc committee. So going back a little bit, interestingly enough, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but REC came to us early 2011, 2012 or so, and when we were building Del Prado, and they said, oh, let's try this pickleball thing. I don't know what the hell that is, you know, and so we said, sure, we looked into it. And instead of, we had 2 dedicated tennis courts at Del Prado, and we switched it to 1 tennis court and 2 pickleball courts just to see what was going to go on. Huge gangbusters. The place was packed all the time. Since that time, as you probably well know, we've, when we redid Estella Park, we made that into a multi-use court with futsal, tennis, and there's 2 pickleball courts there. And excuse me, and at Del Prado, we also made the tennis court. We striped that for pickleball also. So there's potentially 4 courts there. And excuse me. And then at Rancho Caneo, what we did, the big project was around $750,000. We have 6 dedicated lit pickleball courts there. And then even later on, because of the popularity of the sport, we added 4 multi-use courts that are 2 tennis courts into 4 pickleball courts. So it's striped for both. So that's where we are as a district as far as the amount of courts that we have. But then we want to take a look at what do we have in the region, and the region being Ventura County. So what are our other sister agencies do, or cities, and what they're doing. So as a result of that, we have a nice map here, just kind of giving you the locations of where everything is, but just giving to the punchline is that in general, the Canary Rec and Park District has more pickleball courts than our neighbors do. But that's not to say that's we shouldn't do anything, and because obviously it's a very popular sport. We have, as you've seen at board meetings and letters received and emails we received, that the pickleball community wants more. And so I just want to put it out there. Like I said, we did this regional assessment of what's out there, and we're actually fairly, quote unquote, rich in pickleball courts compared to our sister organizations in Ventura County. So we decided to say, how are we going to tackle this challenge that we have, and potentially look at places for more pickleball courts. So what we want to do, so let's say, let's set some, what's our analysis process on what we provided for you here tonight? So what's the minimum that's necessary that after talking to the pickleball community and our sports folks, like what do you make sense? And just for example, what doesn't make sense for everybody is that what we consider, in our opinion, is they don't just want one pickleball court at one location, because that doesn't satisfy them. Pickleball is a very, very social sport, and having 20 people waiting to play, only 4 people play at a time, that's not social, that's frustration. What they would like to have is multiple courts, so there could be 40 people waiting, or 40 people total and 24 people playing, so they can get in and out and play a lot and mix up and have a lot of social time together. So we looked at it and said, okay, what's the minimum things for a site that would have? And it would be 6 pickleball courts would be the minimum, and that's what we have at Rancho Caneo. Lighting, that's what we have at Rancho Caneo. Sufficient amount of parking, multiple restrooms. And then using that would come with like a minimum of like 2 acres footprint that those minimum criteria would have. And then also placing that somewhere away from the residences, because we have heard, and we're lucky enough that Rancho's far away. There's some other organizations, they actually have to play with, I forget the term, but basically pickleballs that don't sound as flunky when you hit it. They play with less sound pickleballs. Ours is pretty far away, and from the neighbors at Rancho Caneo, but I do have friends who live there. They say, oh yeah. But actually for the good reason. She says, oh, when I hear them playing, I run over and come and try to join people. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a noise that they have. So we talked about like what we have and the minimum things that are going to be there. Again, let's get back into, again, we're talking about the process here. So what was our next step? We talked about the minimum that's needed. And again, anytime you guys have a discussion on what you feel is good or bad or whatever, we're not looking for solutions, because there is no right answer. There definitely is no answer whatsoever that just makes perfect sense. We don't have a ton of vacant land where we can just start building things. So the next thing we looked at was, what are the potential locations within the district where we could house a new pickleball facility with that minimum criteria that we had. And using the criteria, again, looking at parking, restrooms, and lights. In general, that's a play field or a community park or a district-wide park. So we didn't omit any of those. We just said we used every single one of those, and what are the ramifications for putting something in one, again, play fields, community parks, and district-wide park. However, we actually even expanded our analysis, because we do have some neighborhood parks that are greater than 10 acres. Because at first we were like, well, maybe a neighborhood park doesn't work because it's just for the neighbors, but we do have some fairly large neighborhood parks, like for instance, Oak Brook Neighborhood Park, which if you remember from years ago when that was developed, that was actually supposed to be a play field. So that's why that's so large. So we figured if it was bigger than 10 acres, and for lack of a better word, you could sacrifice some of the acreage of that neighborhood park, and the neighbors would still have their neighborhood park, and there'd still be able to play pickleball there. So we looked at every single one of those that we have in the district, and that was Exhibit 3, I believe. The first part of Exhibit 3, like a map of all of them. And what we did was, again, we looked at the park facility, the address, and then again, these are just general ideas. Like if we look at the first one at Dos Pinos Community Park, I will only mention one of them. These are just, these are not solutions. These are just ideas. Remember, I want you to concentrate on the process, not that this is the answer. So this is, if everyone's looking at, we're looking at this guy. Okay, just letting you know. So like the general description at Dos Pinos, and this is just me and Andrew kicking around ideas. Convert 1 baseball field, 2 sand volleyball courts to 12 pickleball courts, add lighting, estimated cost $2 million. maybe not, maybe it moves this way, maybe it moves. We're not trying to get into that tonight. I don't want solutions like, well, what if you just did this? Or what if you just, we don't know, because the process is so huge. So then we listed all the pros and cons of doing that particular thing. And then we hope, like, again, with the process with the ad hoc committee, that we could take this list and we could narrow it down, do a lot of public outreach, because every single one of the cons of these locations says remove existing recreational amenity. And I've been there too much, and I hope the ad hoc committee, I'll stand in front of them when we go to the meetings, but I would, if we decide to do something and do some investigations, you know, when you try to take away their tennis court, you try to take away their basketball court, you try to take away their volleyball court.
Yeah.
Well, that's a given. Yeah, that it's the people are very passionate about what they have. And that's why I think again, the process of this is something that requires a lot of work and a lot of effort to decide how we want to move forward with this. Because is this something that the Canary and Park District as an organization wants to move towards satisfying a different demographic that we already have been satisfying for the last 40 or 50 years. And in addition to the passionate people who play those particular sports, we also would need to talk to our own, we just had sports in here. There's a lot of revenue, that happens from our tennis leagues, from our volleyball permits, from basketball, there's a lot of things that happen out there. So by just saying, oh, yeah, change that doesn't work. So there's a lot of things to consider and a lot of options. So that's why I want to get the ad hoc committee to help us formulate the direction where we want to go. So in general, that's where all of the current district properties, again, they're just all over the place. And then maybe this is, again, just my thought, if we narrowed it down, did some public outreach, that's when we can get into when if we wanted to move forward with something and the board, the ad hoc committee and the board felt stronger with it, that we might formulate a more specific plan, like what it would look like and how much it would cost. We get into more specifics then. But again, it's a long process on how we want to get there. And then even some of the other cons that we had, just for mentioning, like with some of them are master planned already. We do have vacant land at Canary Creek Northwest, but it's master planned for a neighborhood park, not for a lit pickleball court. So there's lots of different challenges out there with our own facilities that we have. So that talks about our own facilities, but we also looked at potential partner groups. The main one being the Canal Valley Unified School District. And I included in Exhibit 2 was which we were copied, and I believe the board was copied on. It's an email from the pickleball group. They have actually recently organized, in a good way, organized and formed into the Ventura County Pickleball Club or Association. I can't remember which one. And Dana and I met with them not too long ago, talked about how it's baby steps they're doing. They've been quote unquote in existence for less than 6 months, but they're doing a really good, it's a good friendly partner organization who's looking to help us out in this process, as well as help us out in our operations, in our leagues, and our providing tournaments or whatever. So it's at the moment a very good solid relationship we have with them. But again, let me backtrack. Yeah, they had written a letter to the Canal Valley Unified School District saying, hey, you guys got some vacant land. They're looking at Canal Creek South, the district office there and some of their other places. And they said, hey, please work with the park district and work with the city to figure this out. We did have a very brief discussion with the school district about what are your initial thoughts on this? Because of course we're open with partnering with the school district, whether it's at a middle school or a high school or their vacant lots that they have. And the initial reaction from the school district was, hey, we're not like set to respond to this right away. They're doing a comprehensive facility use fee and a facility usage review and a facility fee review. And then they said when they want to get their ducks in a row first before they commit to a potential development project at a school or a vacant land. So still in play, but right at the moment, it's not something that they're going to jump on the bandwagon and say, this is what we want to do. We also looked at, like that's with one of our sister agencies. We also looked at, for example, working with Cal Lutheran University, similar to the relationship we have with them with the community pool. That's a possibility. They do have some acreage. We did talk to them about a month or so ago, and they said they have been approached by the pickleball group. So again, that's something we could take a look at with them also. And we just use CLU as an example. Maybe there's another facility out there, or excuse me, another private organization out there that we could partner with. If you looked at our regional assessment, there are some clubs out there. The Westlake Athletic Club has pickleball courts. Maybe it's a time thing. Maybe we work with someone like that to build more. Again, the possibilities are endless. That's why we're concentrating on the process and not the solutions, because we don't know this. We're not even close to a viable solution yet. We also looked at to throw out the most inexpensive and the quickest way would be to stripe all of our courts, all of our tennis courts for pickleball. And my quick opinion is, wow, we're irritating both the tennis people and the pickleball people. No one's going to be happy with that. Because the times we have striped, the pickleball people are appreciative that we do it because there's more places to play, but at the same time, they want dedicated courts. The tennis people, when we do that, saying, I can't play tennis anymore. I don't know which line's which. So you try to split the baby, and I think you lose both. But that's just my opinion, but it is the quickest and easiest way, and that might be something that we could look into. And then lastly, like we've been discussing, whether it was the general plan or whatever, is property acquisition. It's just something, if we want to go out there, it could be just a vacant land. It could be a building, that we, in the industrial area that we get out and take a look at it and buy something. And all it is pickleball courts, a bathroom, a couple bathrooms, and parking and lighting. That's it. There's no park amenities, whatever. But again, don't know where that would be possible. The costs that are involved with that could be high. So there's a lot of different variables that go on with this. That's why I think we need to, work with a couple of board members as an ad hoc committee to, again, talk about the process, how we want to move forward. It's take a very analytical, for lack of a word, logical approach with this, because we're going to need, whatever we do, if we move forward with pickleball courts, will be heavily scrutinized by everybody. There's no, there's no right answer. So if we do something, someone over here is not going to be happy. And so this is something that I think we need to know exactly what we're doing and how we're doing. So an analytical approach would be very welcome with this. And again, tonight, I'm not looking for solutions, but I would love to hear feedback on, have we thought of this, or I'm opposed to that, or whatever. So it's just kind of like an open discussion. And I'd welcome comments, and I think your fellow board members would welcome comments. So when we get to the point of forming the ad hoc committee, that the ad hoc committee members know, okay, I kind of got a sense of where we're going with this, so we can move forward on what we need to do. It's fun. This is kind of cool stuff. And I said, I promise I will be in front of the board members at any community meeting, and I'm bigger than all of you. So I'll take all the arrows and the bloodshed. I have shed many ounces of blood at many of these meetings. So what's a few more ounces? So with that, I'm available for questions. As I said, it'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Before I open it up to questions, I'd just like to make a few comments and then kind of recap. What I'd like to do is hear from the board, and mostly to kind of, if there's questions of the the very detailed information here, and thank you, by the way, for putting this together. Questions, but then also, as has been requested, input as far as process, which would be captured by staff and then also shared with the ad hoc committee. So kind of thinking along those lines, again, just to reiterate, we're not here to solve the issue, but just to provide concept or ideas or anything to expound on what's been presented, or perhaps additional information that might be helpful for the ad hoc committee. And once we go through that process, then I'll see who's interested in participating, if there is interest on that committee, and if so, whom might be interested. So that's what I would like to suggest that we do, is just kind of process, just kind of questions and suggestions as far as the process itself, what to be included. And then we'll, after that is concluded, then we'll talk about the actual committee itself. So I'm going to start with Director Cusfer. She's the one that kind of brought this subject up to begin with. So I'll start with her, please. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of just wanted to iterate what Chair Nichols said. This is not the time for us to say, I don't want it here, I don't want it here. It would take us forever. So I think that's going to be something for the ad hoc committee to go. And Administrator Hare, I want to just say, I always appreciate your enthusiasm, because I know that you weren't in the beginning. It didn't seem very enthusiastic to find a place for pickleball, but you've been incredibly thorough. Your maps, as always, are beautiful. And you've come up with a lot of really good suggestions. So I think it's a matter of an ad hoc committee coming down to where is it going to benefit the most, and who are we going to offend the least, and how much is it going to cost?
Yep.
So it's sort of that an ad hoc committee is going to have to kind of flesh out, and that maybe if we have specific ideas or real concerns, it might be something that we would email or talk to the members of the ad hoc committee as our representatives. But again, we could go on with this for a couple of hours. So it might be a good idea to think about the ad hoc committee and, maybe just, again, it's the same process. But thank you again for your enthusiasm.
Sure.
And putting your whole effort into this with beauty, as you always do.
Oh, I'm good with crayons.
Director Holt.
Yes, well, of course, I guess this would be left up to the ad hoc committee, maybe. But, we have had over the years tennis players complain. And, we've tried to appease people. I mean, let's face it. I'll bet you that not every one of these courts is fully, taken many hours of the day. But what happens with these people who are into tennis, and now the pickle court aficionados, but is that you have a small group who's out there pushing for what they personally want. And we don't have a concept of vacancy sometimes here. I mean, if they have to drive a little further to go play, there may be, we've got all these spots out here available, but we've heard this too from over the years from tennis players. They want a tennis court very close to their house. And, and so these complaints come out, and I think what has to be evaluated, but none of us are going to sit there all day counting how many people come to these courts, but it has to be evaluated just how serious a situation this is. Mm-hmm. With the number that you've got here, is it really a shortage for people or not? And that's something, we'd have to find out.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that's the process. Of there are ways.
Yes.
Yeah, so the unfortunate thing is we don't have, we've got 2,000 pickleball players and 3,000. We don't have that number.
Yeah.
Because no one's a registered user. So it's just so much drop in play.
It could be such a short group, small group of people, who are complaining.
Yeah, but I think that's, again, that's a very good point. That'd be part of the process of, we do try to analyze, but then to your point, a lot of people, even though you say, go 2 miles away and you can play tennis there, and they're like, no, I've been playing tennis here.
I want it here.
I've been playing tennis here for 15 years. Don't make me move. And they, again, and just like pickleball, like again, and tennis and some of these other sports that recreational amenities that we might remove for pickleball, it's very social. They have they meet here every morning at 8 a.m. or, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. and they play. And
I know, because we went through this with the tennis players.
yes, yeah,
too.
yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult. And
Yeah.
Director Lang, I'm sorry, were you through?
Yeah.
Okay, Director Lang?
You did make a comment, and I think it was in reference to some of the other sports, but is pickleball developing tournaments and, competition between different areas? So this could be a revenue generator too.
it could. That's a good point. I know we don't necessarily, like you had mentioned before with sports, it's not, Thousand Oaks versus Camarillo. But what they do quite a bit is they'll hold a tournament. I mean, like in Rancho Canayo, there's players from the Valley, Simi Valley, and, because much like what Sue was saying, they all come Tuesday night at Rancho Canayo to play. And then they all go to Camarillo to play on Wednesday nights, and then they all go to Thursday nights into Simi. So they do have their tournaments. Similarly, it's more than it's more of a. That's why we did the regional assessment, because it's much more than just our community playing. Our folks do go to their facilities also. Again, that's why we did the regional assessment. But yeah, the pickleball group. And I actually know that I think their Ventura County Pickleball Association, their first tournament, I believe, is this Sunday. It's fledgling. They did an open house about a month ago or so. Again, they've only been around for about 3 months, but they want to kind of kick it off with tournaments. Our sports group, we hold, like as Dan had said, we do have pickleball leagues on Wednesday. Yeah, you don't go to Rancho on Wednesday nights because there's not a court available, because all the leagues are just blown out how many people they have. But we also have tournaments. We've had our St. Patrick's Day something or other. I forget, some sort of corny, corned beef name that they have. But yeah, so yeah, yes, getting back to original, yes, there is opportunity for tournaments and partnerships with the Ventura County Pickleball Club to run the tournaments for us, or we run them, or they help us. So there's lots of opportunities.
And the better our courts in Rancho.
We have the best courts. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we
and
do.
if you have that quality and centralized number of courts, I think, it has potential of becoming a complex that people, like you say, there's people coming from the valley already to.
Yes, even there's a subgroup within the group, meaning, and again, just like how, again, what Director Holt was saying, that there's definitely a faction, I want more courts at Rancho for that one reason. I want a mega complex. And then, okay, that's something that Hot Committee could look at. But then there's other people who live in Westlake and go, why are you making me drive to Rancho? Why did you just make 12 courts at Rancho when you should have 6 courts at the Westlake side and 6 courts? So there's
lot to be determined and worked out.
Exactly. Sure. I see both sides of the coin. I understand both of them. And again, it's going to be interesting to hear everyone's opinions.
And one other opportunity to make, some additional funds, and I haven't talked to Dana about it, but some months ago, I was approached by a Rotary Club group that wanted to have a tournament or fundraiser, playing pickleball and so forth. And I put them in touch with Dana, so I don't know where that stands, but that's another incentive I think they have a good facility.
Mhm.
Is that you get fundraisers, people that, pickleball is so popular right now. And everybody in our Rotary Club or something, wants to have a pickleball tournament. So,
Oh, definitely.
it-
Definitely. And then even another thought I had, I can't remember if they came to a board meeting and said this, but I thought there was an interesting point that they brought up. Our pickleball lessons that CRPD does are sold out. There's one that you sign up at whatever, 6 a.m. or whatever, our first sold out like that. So they're going, so you keep turning out new pickleball players, but you still have the same amount of courts. We churn out 25 to 75 brand new pickleball players every session and still have 6 pickleball courts here and 2 there. And so when are you guys gonna, you keep on increasing we increase the demand because
That doesn't mean they're playing all the time.
True. But no, I'm just bringing up an interesting point that we keep on producing more players and then they go to the courts and go, I can't get on. So again, that's just something to look at. I thought it was an interesting point.
And again, as been mentioned by other board members, the staff and it was Director Cussworth talked about your maps and all of the information is very thorough, I thought, based on just an initial, start. You got a great start.
Our intention was to provide a foundation for the process.
Very good.
Director Huffer.
Yeah, just a couple of things to build on what Director Lang was talking about. You see it with other sports. I mean, if you have a community with enough softball facilities, they're going to attract major softball tournaments, which are huge revenue generators. If you have a community with enough soccer fields, they're going to get tournaments, people coming from all around the region, if not the country, huge revenue generators. I don't know if they still do it, but you saw it over in Moore Park with field hockey. Every year they used to have a massive field hockey tournament that attracted people from around the world and generated huge amounts of money. So if the demand is there, it's certainly worth exploring, but that's, sort of the starting point. How much unmet demand is there really out there? Is it a few people who are making a lot of noise, or is it a lot of people making a lot of noise? That needs to be determined. And I don't know if the only place you can play pickleball is on a permanent hard court. I know there are some pickleballers who are playing indoor at the facilities and moaning and groaning about all the different lines, and everybody's totally confused. And I don't know if they hate the wooden floors, love the wooden floors, or put up with it because that's the only thing available. But, are there some type of semi-temporary, semi-permanent facilities that can be made? I mean, I'm thinking of the military making an airport by throwing down, pieces of metal, and they can pull them up later on. I'm sure they're not going to want to play on metal, but, maybe there's something in lieu of lots and lots of concrete around the community.
Sure. Yeah. And we do have indoor pickleball at TO Center and Dos Pianos Center.
Yeah.
But again, same thing, but then they're competing with badminton and basketball and gymnastics in our programming. There's so much competition. And then it's indoor pickleball. I don't say it's very different, but it's even played with a different ball because of the bounce that you get. So it's a little bit of a different sport to play indoor than outdoors. But again, people are, hey, it's California, let's play outside. So
yeah. You went through a list of a number of non-district locations that could be used and different solutions. One other possible, you're talking about buying property, that's prohibitively expensive. We certainly couldn't look at that. But possibly another option is leasing property.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an awful lot of commercial space out there, and I'm just thinking of the Oaks Mall and the deserted nursery and the deserted restaurant out there on the east side. They might not want to sell the property, but perhaps they could lease the property. And you already got hard surface there, so.
Yeah, a lot of that's a great exploration we could look into with like you said, the public-private partnerships. because, and then you hope that if we have something near like the mall, that then more people go to the mall because they're playing
Yeah.
pickleball. Again, there's so many opportunities
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, and then we didn't want to get into the weeds,
Right.
but just one other thought that occurred to me,
Yeah.
close to where George and I live, that there's a huge concrete pad that's going to be sitting open presumably another year or so when the Rams leave the Cal Lutheran.
Yeah.
Because they have to take the building down, but they have to leave the pad.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there are lots of different
Right. There's so many
possibilities out
possibilities.
there.
It's endless.
So,
That's why I need your help.
yeah. The bottom line is, I suspect there are a lot of people on the board who are interested in this, but I'm definitely interested in serving on the subcommittee if there isn't anybody else, so.
I have a few comments,
Objection?
suggestions.
Okay. Objection.
Maybe
Wow.
some of those too. We'll see.
Wow, right away.
And observations. First of all, I'm always anxious to support a potential partnership. You know, if we've got an interested group, I want to hear what they have to say. And, you know, if they're going to bring something to the table that's of value, certainly want to hear what they have to say. And here we do have a potential partner. Whether we can actually meet the needs to their expectations, remains to be seen, but nonetheless, it's nice to support a partnership. One of the things I was contemplating with this is this a sign of the times of the demographics in our community? Because I think the average age of a pickleball player is probably a little bit higher than the average age of a soccer player.
Or a tennis player. Even.
Or a tennis player, you know, so it's, you know, definitely serving the needs of a different, I would say different clientele, a specific clientele. And as that wave of residents goes through that age group, you know, that's going to be their sport of preference. So it's almost a, you know, kind of going back when we talk about process, well, how is the demographics of our community influencing these types of things? Because I do believe we need to have a dynamic array of sports and opportunities. It's not, we just do the same thing every year because we've always done that. But if there is definitely a trend that's changing, I think we need to identify that, saying, okay, if this is something that's moving, and I think as part of that process is identify that, is this just a wave that's passing through that might be here for 5 or 10 years, or is this going to be something that's long-term?
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, trying to identify that from the demographics perspective, I think will be important as we go through that. And to speak to Director Holt's comment, is this in fact a trend, or is this just a vocal group expressing their opinion? And is it a large group or is it just a small group? And I think if it's just a small group that they just, you know, there's not enough Wednesday night courts and they want more courts for Wednesday night, but Thursday and Friday and Saturday are never used. It's like, okay, that's like an assessment of, well, how much use do we really have of these facilities? So I think to look at the reality of whether it's a trend or not, or just a vocal group. I will say it's a hot topic, you know, the things that we do hear regularly, either at this dais or just individually in emails or whatnot. Pickleball is one of those things. So I think it's good to address those things as they come up. So as it's a hot topic, you know, we do need to address that. So again, I think we need to, you know, identify, yes, it fits that category. So we definitely need to review that. Some of the things I thought of as far as the process, as far as how we go through that, to address the fact of whether this is a long-term or a short-term, well, maybe it's like identifying some temporary locations. Like we've talked about parking lots even, you know, that aren't being used. And I know you've talked about having lights available. Well, what about finding some portable lights? You know, we can find a spot, put in some portable lights, you know, see if that fits the bill for a while and see if that's going to work, rather than investing a lot of money all up front. Oh, we need to do all this permanently. And then 5 years later, it's not being used that much.
And don't forget restrooms.
We can have portable restrooms too, sure, whatever it takes. But I think there's those types of things where if you've identified, for example, if you talked about the school district, they say, well, you know, we know we're not using this site for the next couple of years. Like, okay, well, we'll take it for 2 years, get some portable lights, get some portable potties and give it a try and see if it truly is going to be used or not. So I think there's some things like that to consider where it doesn't have to be, you know, buying a piece of land, installing a permanent facility and then figuring out, I think we need to look at a variety of things as you go through that process. So you're considering some short-term solutions before you jump into the long term. So I think that would be something to consider as well. I also believe as part of the ad hoc committee process, it should include community input. While we definitely have a partnership potential with the pickleball group, but expanding that to just the general population, say, hey, we're looking at pickleball as something that's maybe the demands are not being met as far as facilities. We'd like to get some community input with it and have the ad hoc committee to be participating at that. To me, another option may be restriping basketball courts, not just tennis courts, but basketball too. I don't know how. I'm just thinking of flat places that maybe not be used. Which are they? We do have those at our neighborhood parks. So that, again, just trying to think outside the box here. And then going to the longer term, considering what other item was on our agenda tonight is the general plan. How does that play into a part of it? Is how's that going to affect our long-term facilities, and how does this fit into the future facility needs that we have? So those are the types of things that I was thinking of when it comes to actually, the process, the things to consider that we have to build into this overall process. I did think of one last thing, reservations. If you want to get to the point of tracking, just say, okay, well, you can always fall back on, hey, we need to have reservations here so we know how many people are actually using it and when and where. So you can, better be able to track on some of that. So those are some of my thoughts as far as the how-to and where and possibilities. And obviously the committee can go beyond that if that's the case. Director Lang.
Yes, thank you, Chair Nichols. I'd like to ask Rochelle a question, and I'm first going to mention I have some friends who live in Florida, and talking about the popularity of pickleball, in that particular area is phenomenal. People are putting pickleball courts in their backyards, just like years ago people put in tennis courts and so forth here. But is there any indication through National Recreation Park Association about the trend of pickleball? Is it sustaining right now, or is it flat? Have you got any feel for that? And as Mr. Hare mentioned about, our classes are producing, 50, 70 pickleball players at the end of every session. I think we're, adding to not, and this was another question, not just to the older population, but I think, aren't there some younger kids playing pickleball also? And so it's starting to develop, popularity amongst younger kids.
They actually teach in some of the schools. The PE classes teach it in some of the schools.
Okay, Rochelle, I'm sorry.
Yeah, nationally, I'm not positive. I'd have to ask Dana what she's heard nationally, but I did meet with the sports group to talk about this subject and kind of get their feel. And their feel was that it's a growing sport. Just by, we sell out on our tournaments, we sell out in our classes. We've tried youth classes and we haven't really got anyone that signed up for youth classes, but like Tom said, Lorena, I believe, is putting in pickleball courts. I heard that might be happening for their youth, or teaching them in the PE classes. And I think there's a couple middle schools that are doing it also. So I foresee the youth, it becoming something more that the youth do. But with that being said, the 40 and older group is definitely something that it's going to keep going. So they felt that there was worth in talking about this also. And I believe a couple of our staff would be on the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Director Huffer.
I just had one other quick question for Tom. Your district-wide assessment looks suspiciously like it might have been a spreadsheet. Did you by any chance, just for jollies, total up if you did everything that was in there, how many hundreds of pickleball courts and how many billions of dollars it would be?
No, but I could get that. It is a spreadsheet. You are correct. Amazingly enough, it is a spreadsheet.
Okay, with no more questions that I see here, I will, at this point, transition to those in support of a committee, and if so, those who would like to participate on that committee. So I'd like to hear from the board members at that point.
I'd support an ad hoc committee. I think it's very key.
Okay. You mentioned interest in it, so I know you would support it.
Yeah, I support it and I would be interested. If-
Okay,
Don't want to get into battles, but I would be interested.
okay. Director Cusworth?
Yes, I highly support it.
Okay. And, Director Holt, you supportive of the concept?
Yeah,
Okay,
and I wouldn't mind being on the
Okay.
committee too.
okay. All right.
But everybody else wants to, so.
Well, I just was going to ask
Forget it.
Director Cusworth, I know you brought this up to the boards. I didn't know if you were interested in being on the committee or if you
Well,
were
I'm
just wanting to get this out for discussion.
No, I wanted to get it out for discussion. I'm always interested to be on a committee, but I am on quite a few committees, so
I'm on
if
none.
other people were interested in that, then they could go forth and then I could just express my opinions privately to people.
Okay, all right.
So, but if nobody else wants to, yes, this is something I think is a good project, but I'm willing to not be on it because I'm on a lot right now.
Okay, very good. All right, well, so Director Huffer has expressed an interest, and Director Holt, I don't know if that was a reluctant yes, or that you would like to be part
No,
of
I
it?
could be on it,
Could be, or you would like to be.
yeah. Okay.
How about Chair Nichols?
I want to twist your arm, but if you want to
Okay,
be
he
part of it.
doesn't want me to be on it, so.
No.
What did you say?
No. I
What
was
did
saying,
you
if you, it was like you were being reluctant, but if you want to be on it, you're
No,
welcome to do that.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We'll have Director Holt and Director Huffer up there if the board would like to vote on that. So those are our two candidates for the ad hoc committee. So, yeah, so you would like to make a motion on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion on that. I'd like to recommend that we create an ad hoc committee to explore potentially suitable solutions, and the members of our ad hoc committee on our board will be Director Huffer and Director Holt.
Okay. Thank you. We have a second to that. Director Huffer? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move forward with that. Again, thank you, Administrator Hare, for that very thorough presentation and the documents. I know we'll be getting some input from the whole board as well, but thank you for getting us started with this. Okay, next is item 9F with the temporary lease agreement. To you or right to
Actually,
Ms.
this
Callis,
is
or-
going to be Miss Callis.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Thank you, Chair Nichols and members of the board. So this is to discuss a temporary lease agreement with the Reign of Terror Haunted House nonprofit and the Thousand Oaks Marketplace, which is the Jan's Mall. So just a little bit of history, you know, the Reign of Terror began in 1999 at Bruce Stanton's home in Thousand Oaks. The first year of the haunted house, he drew about 40 people. By the 8th year, he had over 4,000 people, needed a new place to go. CRPD stepped in 2008. Reign of Terror actually came here to Hillcrest. In 2009, they moved over to a vacant store site at the Thousand Oaks Marketplace. They were above the Gold's Gym. At that time, the Jan's Mall did not charge a fee for that rental. They were very generous for many years with us. That was also the first year in 2009 that the Reign of Terror actually made a donation to CRPD. Over the last several years, Reign of Terror has actually donated over $300,000 to Conejo Recreation and Park District, going to the Thousand Oaks Teen Center and the Conejo Theater for Everyone for the Teen Summer Musical. So the contributions that they give help offset the costs of equipment and equipment purchases for the different programs. In 2020, the Thousand Oaks Marketplace changed the location of Reign of Terror. They moved it from above Gold's Gym to the ground floor near the hot dog stand. I don't know what it was before. anyhow, they're downstairs now, and a new lease agreement was made with Reign of Terror and CRPD and the Jans Marketplace with a $70,000 rent, which the Reign of Terror was going to pay out of proceeds that they got each year. So unfortunately, COVID happened. There was no event. The Jans Marketplace released the Reign of Terror of that fee, and it was not charged. So we are at a point, it's an annual thing. So this is the lease agreement for this current year. It is $75,000, and Bruce is at the same agreement. Whatever he makes, that would be paid out of his what he makes for the event. But it is still an agreement between CRPD, the Jans Marketplace, and the Reign of Terror. So we're kind of a backup and just in case type of a thing. But he should have, if the event is on, he'll start marketing it. He's already working with the teen center to figure out how we're going to be marketing it, and Charlene also. So with that, I am available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? No, no. Oh, yes, Director Huffer?
Quick question. Other than the increase from 70,000 to 75,000, is this essentially the same agreement that we approved a year and a half ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just basically date changes and the $5,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, if there's any other questions, we have a recommendation. Is there a motion for that? Okay, Director Cussworth.
So I recommend that we authorize the general manager to sign and execute a lease agreement with the Thousand Oaks Marketplace for the Reign of Terror Haunted House.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, our last new item, 9G. Excuse me.
I'm back. After a brief
All right, on, all right,
granola bar.
Lane Ranch Neighborhood Park, et cetera. Mr. Hare.
Yeah, thanks to Chair Nicholson, members of the board. 4 playgrounds that we're doing at Lang Ranch Neighborhood Park, Triangle Community Park, South Shore Hills Park, and Thousand Oaks Community Park. Some of the we've got 5 recommendations before you. The first one to determine that these projects are exempt under CEQA. Go a little into that. Basically, the projects are replacing existing playgrounds, so we're recommending that they're exempt. In addition, at Thousand Oaks Community Park, we're adding a small shade structure, and that's a different Class 1 exemption. A different exemption to Class 1, saying adding minor structures to that they're, for lack of a word, negligible to the project. So that's the CEQA end of it. We also, the second recommendation is this is a new one that we're going to be putting with all our projects now, is to actually the board would be approving the playground improvements. So you're actually approving the projects. You do approve it once when we do the budget, but then this gives you an opportunity to look at actually the plans and specs, and as part of the board report, under discussion, like if you look at the first line item or the first paragraph in the discussion, talks about the playground improvement project plans are available for your review and approval at on that direct link. So that's a little different than we've done before, but we want to add that for our future projects. And then the next 2 recommendations have to do with additional appropriations that are required to complete the playgrounds. And the last and the most important one would be to award the bid to Unlimited Engineering. Unlimited Engineering has done quite a few playgrounds for us. Most recently, they did it was one project, but they did it at Kimber, Rancho Caneo, and Dos Fianos Neighborhood Park. We did advertise this out to the general bidding public. We got 5 bids, and Unlimited Engineering was the lowest responsible bidder of the group. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Director Ling.
Yes, good presentation, good ideas and so forth. But I was going to ask, because you often, and I think there is an underlying theme to all these different parks. Would you go through?
Sure.
You know, I see the items, but would you
Sure.
go through and say what these themes are?
Sure. If you go like the very page 122, started with Lang Ranch Neighborhood Park, is a ranch theme, Lang Ranch themed. Triunfo is more of an like nature themed, outdoorsy themed due to the adjacency to open space. And if you turn the next page, South Shore Hills is more of a lake themed because it's over in the Westlake area. Thousand Oaks Community Park, if you remember, we've got the anthill there currently. We're going to continue with that theme. And if you look at the middle picture on the right-hand side, you really can see it. That's a picnic basket. So it's a picnic themed. And so there's little creatures, and yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. And then, did I do them all? Oh, I did them all. Okay, cool. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we each one has their own little theme.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No further questions.
Yes, Director Cuthworth.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment that I appreciated that at the Triunfo Community Park, it looks like you're planning to put a map of the Los Robles Trail,
Yes.
which kind of goes along with our, education and
Yes.
history and art, because you are giving education to the Santa Monica Mountains and a trail right there. And this is exactly the sort of thing that we've been talking about incorporating into our park. So it's a simple thing, but I think it makes a big difference. And I wanted to say that the Thousand Oaks Community Park looks absolutely darling. I mean, cute as can be, and goes along with that ant hill slide thing. Now, on the ant hill slide, it looks like you have some lines there. Are you redoing the ant hill, and are those little carts going down, or are people still supposed to bring cardboard boxes?
We will be redoing the anthill. But yeah, it's not, but you still would, well, they could bring their own cardboard boxes, but at the same time, sometimes staff just throws them out there too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It has had those lines that look a little bit different, so. Okay, thank you very much. Excellent drawings again, as always.
Any other questions, comments? I just had a question for you. When it comes to the themes, is that just your staff coming up with it? There are recommendations from vendors? How do you?
All the above.
All the above?
We work with, sometimes it's, the community might have some ideas. Our suppliers do have a lot of great ideas too. And we talk to the recreation staff too. And then park staff looks at it more for like, we're holistically like going, oh, Toronto Park's next to open space. So let's start thinking that way first. And then and go from there. But it's a collaboration between all the above.
Okay. And are all these pieces of equipment like off the shelf and you just pick out a catalog, or do they like custom make it or kind of modify them? How does that work?
For the most part, standard, but the suppliers are really good about, like if you, just because I'm looking at like the ladybug, that would be standard. However, like Director Cuthworth pointed out, the Los Robles Trail map is obviously custom. So there will be some custom pieces that they'll make with their standard pieces that kind of, so it makes it all work and fit together. We try as best as we can to have as most standard. And one of the reasons we do that is because if something goes wrong, which as you remember, it did on some other projects that we've had, like I remember at Kimber was one of them. The difference between like a custom is like it's off the shelf, they get it to us within 2 weeks. The custom one could be 6 to 8 weeks. So we try to stick as much as we can to standard equipment.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think they got some great ideas. And could you just enlighten me as to how this new step of approving playground improvements was inserted in there? It seems like if you're approving the budget appropriation, what is this distinction here?
This actually helps with the board's design immunity for these projects by one of the first things that courts or may look at with if someone got hurt on one of our projects is, has the board look at the plans and spec or approve the plans and specs. So that helps out greatly with our just one more layer of immunity our organization has with potential patrons who might sue us. Again, knock on wood with all that, but you know, we have had issues where minor stuff where people, you know, and like the last one I can remember was an adult hit herself in the head, you know, on the playground. You're like, well, you're an adult. Yeah, you shouldn't be on the 5 to 12 playground. So that helps out. But just one more layer of immunity.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Director Lang?
Thank you, Chair Nichols. Talking about history, and you've got Lang Ranch Neighborhood Park. As a person who'd been on Lang Ranch before it was even discovered who owned it, the property, it was being leased out to a cattle rancher. And we did a couple scout overnights there. And it was in between the cow pies and the cattle and so forth. So I don't know if you want to integrate those items into the.
We'll bring some cow pies in.
Pardon?
We'll bring some cow pies in and
Yeah,
you
right.
can sleep between them.
Yeah, or this big plastic cow or
Okay.
something like that.
Yep, actually, to tag on that, my brother-in-laws did their Boy Scout jamborees out there. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Director Huffer?
Yeah, it may have been in there, Tom, but just so that I know when to plan my grandkids' visits to town, what's the timing on these projects?
Probably if the board approves it tonight, it's usually 4 to 6 weeks by that, because he doesn't start anything obviously till so he'll order it right away. About 6 weeks later he'll start construction, and it's up to him. And generally, knowing how unlimited engineering works, what he'll try to do is the delivery dates will be here, 2 weeks later here, 2 weeks later here, 2 weeks later there. So it might be 14 weeks or so when all of them are completed, but one might be completed in 8 weeks because he starts at first, because we don't want to demo one and have it sitting demolished until the new ones come there. So I'd say 14 for all, and then we'll probably talk to Unlimited Engineering about which ones he wants to do first, because sometimes generally they don't have the staff to do all 4 of them at once.
So if we're looking at sometime late October or November, they should all be done by then. I can have my grandkids visit, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll keep you updated with that when, and the
Excellent.
board meetings, letting you know what the order is and what the outlook is for
All right.
completion.
And then just hate to bring up a sort of subject, but just so that there's no confusion about it, presumably the surfaces in all 4 playgrounds will be the same manufactured wood fiber that
Yes.
we're using in all of our other playgrounds.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions. Is there a motion? We have 5 recommendations within the motion. Director Huffer?
I'd like to move approval of staff recommendations 1 through 5.
Second.
All right, we got a
I expect you to
Madam
go through each
Secretary, does
one,
that work
Chuck.
for you? All right. So we got a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, that concludes our new items. Thank you for indulging us through that process. Item 10, reports and announcements. We've got quite a few in there. Was there any comments or questions of staff regarding that? Director Lang, yes?
Yes, under the Recreation Division highlights, it's good job, Rochelle and all the staff, and considering, you know, what we just went through and all the activities that we're already involved with, and seeing happy faces and so forth. So that's a very positive thing I saw. And also, I don't know if that's where I saw it, but the outreach activities. How is that going without Pete, as part of the team? We just got 2 now. How's that? Well, and school's been different too, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, with Pete out, we've, been in COVID and couldn't get into the schools and stuff like that. We ran a couple programs with partnership with Safe Passage this summer, and Outreach ran the camps. So they've been busy trying to get back into the groove of things with summer, now that the kids are back in the building. They will be in the schools in the fall, so they are prepping for that. And we're going to start out with the 2 and confirm our budget for the year with the school district and see how that goes for a couple months. And there may be the opportunity for some change after we kind of figure out what it all looks like.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank
But
you.
the staff are doing great. So Dan and Elizabeth are doing
yeah.
great. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Huffer?
I guess I have to brag a little bit on our local Kiwanis Club. Just you mentioned the Cycles for Success, and our local Kiwanis Club has provided, I think, close to 40 bicycles for the combination of the teen center and the
Safe Passage.
Safe Passage. So
That's great.
Yeah.
I had a question on your, page 143, facility reservations. Excuse me, I noticed athletic fields was like 209,000. How is that number generated for participants on athletic fields? This is in March 2021.
Oh, you're looking at so the number of visitors is that what you asked? The
Yeah,
visitors?
just wonder how
So the
that's-
number of visitors is gathered from what the person puts on
Okay.
the form.
That's what I was wondering.
So it can change drastically.
As I said, nobody's
So-
counting them. It's just what they think what they're expecting.
Oh, my clicker.
Yes. Okay.
My clicker.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So it's
Clicker.
all based off of information that they provide to us on their reservation form.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And then I didn't bring a copy of it, but on the summer concerts, I was noticing on the program, I forget the itemization of the sponsors that you have, but I noticed in the order of recognition that you had the group that dedicated or donated less money was above the group that was dedicated more money. So maybe that could be switched to get them at a higher level, just to recognize them.
the
patrons
$50
were on
$50
top.
sponsors were listed before the $100 sponsors.
Okay, I'll
So-
check that out.
Just make sure they get their fair due. I think it's only appropriate. But otherwise, it was a great program. All right, no other comments on that. Move to item 11, department reports. We'll start with the Parks Division.
Thanks, Chair Nicholas, Member of the Board. Thank you for the segue, because I was going to talk about the concerts in the park. That we missed the first one, but we're going to start doing some public outreach at the concerts regarding the Caneo Community Park project. They're out there just, passively be up there, and we got some flyers and some other stuff so we could talk to people in the boards to talk to interested parties about the project. And also the dog park project where we're doing the parking lot and some of the landscaping and adding the restroom and adding the shade structures. That's actually starting next week. And then we did set up a temporary facility for them in coordination with ETI over at on Canary Creek West. So people still could have some ability to run their dogs around. We're looking at probably 2 to 3 months for that project. We were thinking about, feel like we're doing it halfway, but then we didn't want the dogs and the people mixing with the contractor. So we just said, let's just shut the whole thing down for a couple months rather than half shutting it down for 4 months. And then we're going to take the opportunity while the project is going on to do a little, for lack of a better word, field refurbishment. Our staff will be doing that on the current dog park. With that, I'm available for questions.
Yes, Director Huffer.
Yeah, we've been reading a lot in the papers recently about the so far voluntary reductions in water usage. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the way those don't become mandatory. I'm assuming or hoping that you and your staff are already starting to look at that, and no, I didn't think so. But we've already done so much in conserving water. I would be really nervous if the state came along and said, okay, everybody set to cut 15% required.
But that's I mean, interesting. And there, thanks again for a good segue. I've already wrote the email to the board, but I haven't. And Jim just signed the monthly water report. I just did it, whatever, 5 hours ago, but I haven't scanned it and sent it to you guys. And that was one of the comments about. It's actually kind of interesting. The analysts are talking, or analysts/experts are saying Newsom. It's like half of them are saying Newsom's 15% please cut back is not enough. Like we need that. This is too late, and we got to do more right now. And then there's some other saying that this is right along, that the like MWD and all the other water districts, they're claiming that they've done such a good job from lessons learned from the last drought, that they're prepared. They've taken the right steps, and they think it's what we're doing is what Governor Newsom's doing is a good path. But like I said, with that said, that to directly answer your comment about what we're doing and how we're doing it, I have been in communication with the city of Thousand Oaks, who kind of coordinates the responses, because it's really not necessarily from the like Cal-Am, because we've got 3 suppliers. We've got Cal-Am, Cal Water, and the city of Thousand Oaks. Well, last time we met monthly, I believe it might have been weekly, I can't remember, about like efforts. But then they're a lot driven by MWD. So it kind of, it trickles down on what, when you say a mandatory 15% reduction is, it sort of trickles down what exactly then each one, so the big guy says that, and then the next big guys have to implement that somehow, because then they're supplying water to all these people who are supplying water to all the customers. So we're at the, I don't want to say we're at the last line, but it's something that we're very attuned to. We're doing really well. We've been trying to advocate with our suppliers in the city, because the city will come up with their regulations on what we can and can't do as far as watering. Last time we got a lot of waivers, because of how good we were doing, and so it's a long process. Yeah, sorry, it's just a long answer for that, but I think we're in a really good shape. We have a really good relationship with our suppliers, and we also are recognized by our suppliers as a leader in drought response and water conservation. And I think it's something that I hope it doesn't hurt us. Like you said, what's squeezing the blood out of the turnip or the stone. But I think at the moment, we are in good shape as an organization, but we will always try to be a leader in the community as far as water conservation goes.
Okay, thank you. Next, Recreation Division.
Thanks again, Chair Nichols. So a couple things. I'm going to try to, not talk as long as Tom has been talking tonight, so I'll try to make it short. But
you asked questions. I was done.
You did well.
Thank you, George. Thank you.
so
One half of the Cornhole team appreciates it.
all right, just wanted to brag a little bit about the Global Center. Ventura County Chapter, California Association for Marriage and Family Therapists, actually does a newsletter for all their therapists and stuff in the county. And they asked Patty to do an article in their newsletter. So that was really nice. Also want to remind you that Touch a Truck is going to be happening. It is a parade. It is going to be different. So next summer, the grandkids could come, because it will be back to normal. Actually, it wouldn't be in the summer. It'll be back at its normal time. So just earlier. But this is going to be a parade. We have about 15 vehicles in it right now. A lot of ours, Rangers, and a couple of businesses, and potentially the military. So that'll be happening. So on the 31st at 10 o'clock. So, yeah. Just so you know, CRPD is hosting Leadership Conejo tomorrow. So we're doing a tour with the Conejo Leadership Group. We've had a couple of nominations for athlete awards. So we're going to be putting the committee together. Lean's going to be sending out an invite. Hopefully we'll be able to have that committee meeting in August. So our sports department will be working with that committee. A reminder, tomorrow, which is Friday, is the last night to get your tickets for The Little Mermaid. It is our young theater kids. If you have little grandkids, that it might be fun. I went by myself. It was the weird lady sitting in the back. But I was only going to stay for a little while, you guys. I got so into it, I stayed for the whole thing. You know, the kids, it's so awesome. Frank does such a great job with our camp. And it's different this year. Usually all the kids would participate in all the performances and the leads would be different kids each night. But because we can only have so many kids on stage and this, that, and whatever, they're all wearing masks. You can hardly tell because you're inside in a K-8 property. Everyone has to wear masks. But what they've done is it's a different cast every night. So there's about 19 or 20 kids each night. It's totally different. So my night, like I loved Sebastian the Crab and Little Mermaid did great. And the chef did an awesome job. And it was just really fun to see all different levels of kids on the stage. So if you're looking for, it's only about an hour. It's very short, no potty breaks. So, but it's a good time. And then with that being said, we were in the newspaper several times, but there was a spot for Les Mis. There are still tickets available for Les Mis. So, but not many. So if you're going to go, you need to get your tickets. So I've got mine Sunday afternoon at 2. And then just so you know, for, NRPA, said that right, inside joke there. Anyhow, for NRPA, it's National, Recreation and Park Month. And so one of the things we started last year during COVID was that we recognized staff each week from the different departments. So we've done that again this month, and hopefully you've seen the different ads in the paper with the pictures and on social media and stuff, and their supervisors have done nice write-ups. So far we've had 3 people in the paper. Due to COVID and everything, we actually had a few more that we're going to be recognizing. I'm not going to tell you who they are, so keep an eye in the newspaper, but every week there will be a different person that's recognized until about the 2nd week in August. So we love doing that. We love being able to take the time to recognize our staff and all their hard work. So with that, I am available for questions.
Thank you. I've been timing Rochelle and she talked longer than you did, so.
More intelligent.
Oh, your watch is right if you were only talking about the highlight part or this part of the meeting.
All right, now we get to go and listen to the management services rendition
No,
of
we
this.
didn't get what times of questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, you're talking about the parade for Touch a Truck. I didn't hear you mention you may have an MRCA fire trucks. Did you ask them?
I don't know.
Normally they participate, as you recall. Maybe
I don't know if
recall.
America, I would like to believe that America asked everybody that has participated in the past for the regular Touch a Truck, but I will shoot her an email and double check.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Director Cusworth.
I might have missed it. Did you say where the parade was going to be?
You did not miss it. It's at Conejo Creek North. So you'll park in front of the library or the Goebel Center or the Teen Center and walk in, and then bring blankets, snacks, whatever, find a place to sit probably near the sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay, is that it? All right. Oh, Director Huffer.
You said the little kids in Mermaid are having to wear masks. Are the bigger kids, do they have to wear masks too?
No, because it's following different rules because they're not on a school campus.
That's why they're doing it at the Civic Arts Plaza, not TO or Newberry Park. Aha.
Last call. Okay, on to management services. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. I will be even briefer than Rochelle. So you might remember that we had some internal control recommendations from our auditors. And so we came to the board with a corrective action plan and we've implemented that. And so we just went through our interim audit and they confirmed that we had done it all correctly and they have no internal control findings this year and even put a little happy face in the message. So anytime I get a happy face from an auditor, I'm going to tell you about it. So anyway, that's all I have and I'm available for questions.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to the general manager.
Mine will probably be even shorter. Something not really exciting or sexy, but we did do our insurance renewals. Workers' comp, not really notable. Liability property went up a bit. The problem is it required us to significantly adjust our property insurance with respect to wildfires. And that's because of California's experience statewide with respect to wildfires. So just to be clear, we have coverage 0 to 150,000 from Capri directly. Then from 150 to 500, we are uninsured. We then have insurance for 5 million and above to a pretty significant number. So that layer that there is no insurance, there's a strategy that others use that because you are uninsured in that layer, if you have losses in that layer, you can make a sort of theoretical one-time for FEMA's purposes, one-time claim to FEMA for a loss in that layer. Whether that strategy would work, I don't totally know, but that is what Capri voted to do. So that's what our insurance renewal looks like. We are told should California suffer a wildfire season like it did last year, that there will be very few insurers writing insurance for wildfire property losses in the state, which means we'd have to have something kind of like the California Earthquake Authority or something created. Yeah, this is like way bigger than us, but that's what's going on with wildfire coverage. And then on a super happy note, it was great that each one of you could make it to the press conference that Jackie Irwin called and invited Senator Stern's office. So to get a specific call out in the budget for some of the relief. The money is great and it goes a long way and it's exactly what we needed given the COVID losses. But just, I will tell you, just the emotional acknowledgement of all that this board and the staff have done in, the past 15 months, that actually felt as good as the money. So anyway, with that, I'm available for questions.
Any questions, Director Huffer?
No, it's not a question, but a comment. Yes, all of the staff were heavily involved in the process, but I know, Jim, it was your leadership that managed to get this through with Jackie and Henry getting this through the legislature. That you look at the list, because there was that long list of entities that were receiving some kind of funding in that legislation, and as best I could tell, we were either the only or one of very few entities in the entire county that was specified as receiving funding through that. And the efforts that you put in for our organization, but also for the entire Ventura County Special Districts, I think was critical in getting that funding for us and for all of your efforts. I applaud you. I think that was wonderful.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Did the other two park districts not try to get any funding from the state? I mean, because in the Acorn today,
I wouldn't characterize it as not try, because I do know they personally were doing things. I think we had the magical, perfect combination of Senator Stern and Assemblymember Irwin, Jackie. So that combo Rancho Simi didn't have that combo. Pleasant Valley didn't have that combo.
Oh.
So yeah, so yeah, Pleasant Valley has Jackie, but they don't have Henry, and Rancho Simi has Henry, but they don't have Jackie. So we had both, and that made the difference. And there's political calculus and things that happen in the black box of Sacramento that I couldn't tell you why that came out the way it did, but
Well,
I think, yeah.
good. You done good.
Yeah, I want to second that as well. Thank you, Jim, for your extra efforts on that. And it's not just a single extra effort. It was a months-long labor of love, and I appreciate all your efforts to do that. Thank you. Okay, move on to director's reports and follow-ups. I'll start to my left with Director Huffer.
Well, it was certainly nice to have a 4th of July that felt like a real 4th of July this year. You know, I think I did most of the activities. I saw the Langs and the Holtz at the pancake breakfast, and I hung around for a while and watched the home run derby. I can't believe those guys, the way they swat that ball. The concert in the park was a lot of fun. The fireworks from right down at the bottom of the hill were absolutely spectacular. Maybe it was just because we hadn't had it in a while, but it seemed like the best and the longest fireworks show that we've had, at least that I can remember. So the fireworks show was terrific. And so it made for a very fun 4th. I did, the day before, I went over to the Stagecoach Inn, and they had a little ice cream social thing going on over there, and I participated in that for a little while. So, but other than that, there were no meetings that I can recall, but it was fun for us.
Very good. Director Holt?
Yeah, well, I had meetings, more meetings than usual, but I have to tell you what was the best thing. I had a special trip with Tom to go to all the parks that I'm not usually going to. And it was great. He bought lunch even for me. So, anyway.
Hey, Tom, I'd like to go see our parks.
Yes, he did. Anyway, no, it was really special. And I want to just tell you one thing that just stuck out. I mean, when I had young children or young grandchildren, I was in the parks more, but you know, we don't go much now, except, anyway, so Tom took me to parks and also to the new, what's that? It's too late.
The equestrian facility?
The equestrian facility.
Potrero.
Yeah. I was going to say Rancho Potrero, and I thought, is that right? Anyway, but one thing that, you know, because we had talked at our meetings about art, we had the art committee talking about art in the parks or in the buildings that are in the parks. And I was so astonished by some of the art in the children's playgrounds at some of these smaller parks, actually. It was incredible. It was different types of equipment that they'd be using, plus actual painting on something. I mean, it was really great. So thank you, Tom. That was an excellent trip. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Director Cutsworth?
Yeah, so I know a lot of us were at the conference in Monterey, but a couple of things I wanted to mention of that, because I thought, wow, we're really on the ball. The classes that I went to, one of them was on bringing education into your parks. And I thought, oh, well, that's something that we're talking about. They were talking about bringing in passive education, such as we have an ad hoc committee for that. They were also talking about partnering with schools, which we've also talked about that. And Rochelle was also at that meeting about our staff actually going to the schools that have parks next door and doing field trips, which I got the idea from Tom, who has done that over at Banyan. And I thought, well, we're right in that with what they're saying is the new things to do. Also, they had a class on community facilities districts, which is something else that we are looking into. And then they also talked about homeless, which is another thing that we have recently brought up. Only that presentation was more about how not to get sued by homeless people. But they said homeless people normally are going to sue cities and Caltrans, so we're not really into that. But well, I shouldn't say this. And Rochelle and I are going, she looks really young. And then we thought, maybe we're getting old. I don't know, the presenter. I have my tickets on Saturday night at 7 o'clock for Les Mis. So if any of you would like to join Harvey and I, we're very excited. One thing that's starting at the Stagecoach Inn Museum are called Fun Fridays. I think they're going to be doing them once or twice a month for a $10 charge. It's kind of a new thing, and I hope it goes well. Their first one is going to be Christmas in July. They've got music, they've got a movie, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, a bunch of crafts, and we also have, you know, lots of other things planned. So, you know, be looking for those. Some of them would be more of an appropriate date night. Some of them are going to be more appropriate for kids, a $10 charge. I think that includes refreshments. So, so that's just a new innovative thing that they're doing. They're getting very innovative over there. I have to say, Jen is really bringing in a lot of great ideas. Something that I'm excited about that hasn't happened yet is on Monday at McCrae Ranch, I've arranged with Wyatt to give a tour to Barbara Tejada, Jana over at the Stagecoach Inn, Barbara from the Chumash, the historian from the Stagecoach Inn, Carol, my husband and I. We're going to get one of his private tours and then sit on the porch with refreshments, kind of as a goodwill meeting of all of our 3 museums to say, hey, we don't have to talk about museum, let's just talk about each other. And you know how fun Wyatt is. So hopefully Lisa will come too. So, so that's kind of something to bring our museums together. And with that, I am open for questions.
Seeing none, we'll move on to Director Lang.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. One of the events that some of us attended was the Ron Helis Valor of Bravery. Is that the
Badge
term?
of Bravery.
Pardon?
Badge of Bravery.
Badge of Bravery. And it's a congressional recognition, and now 180 some nationwide have only been selected for that. So Congresswoman Brownlee made that selection. So that was a very moving ceremony, and to hear his wife speak for the first time was really touching. So good event. I know we didn't put it together, but Chair Nichols spoke at it, and good touch. That was really good. Also attended MRCA, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. I was also asked to attend the Mark Johnson. Some of you may remember he was a board member at Rancho Simi for over 20 years and was not reelected. So based on COVID, the recognition of his service for the 20-some years was delayed until a couple weeks ago. So anyway, I represented the district at that, and the city of Thousand Oaks at that event. Nothing more.
Thank you. Well, since we last met on June 15th, I had a handful of things I participated in. One was joining the folks over at the Senior of the Year presentation at City Hall. That was very nice. Glad to participate in that. And then also we had the gratitude circle. Remember, just trying to track some of these things.
Meeting. Wow, yeah.
We had the CRPD meeting or conference up in Monterey. Let's see, also met with the general manager, and we did the concert in the park. We had the Ron Helis ceremony, the Badge of Bravery with Congressman Brownlee. And then we attended the city council meeting for the Parks Proclamation. And then we had a press conference with Assembly Member Jackie Urban. So we had a full month. We had, a lot, we had so much we forgot half of what we were doing. I just had to go through my calendar to count it all up. So So we're ready for a break, which we will be getting here shortly. So, okay, with that, item 12, requests for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Yes, Director Cressworth.
Well, with my interest in history and with our redoing the master plan, I would like to go, I'm going to go through our first general plan report from 1965 and perhaps bring in some items that we want to include in our next master plan that we're finding. Jim kind of showed me a few of these, so I'm going to look at kind of what he's marked and look at a few others just to see the master plan through history. So just a short report.
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep it short. I have a feeling it could be long, but I'm going to try to keep it short.
Very cool. All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Items from the public. Do we have anybody waiting in the wings to address the board? No? Okay, thank you. No closed session, is that correct?
There's no need for a closed session.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we will adjourn to August 26th.
Yes.
If that's correct?
Yes, just for the record, that is not the annually scheduled meeting. We are going to bump up our September meeting to August 26th because the board's all available and there is a conference that conflicts with many of our schedules on September 2nd. So that will be labeled a special meeting, but we'll give you guys the 72-hour notice and all that kind of stuff. So everyone should know we're having a meeting.
Very good. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
We're going to adjourn.
Memories.
Oh, yes.
Memory.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. I had it right here. I'm going to defer regarding Dolores DeDito to George Lang. Do you have that? Would you like this?
I've got it on the.
Okay. All right. Very good.
No, I'll read it from
That's
that.
a little short version. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay, those from our community have been around a number of years know that Dolores DeDito was very, very active in the school district and on the school board. And she was an individual who really respected the Park District and saw the importance of our district in our whole community, as part of the city, part of the school district. So she and Dorothy Babobian, Dick, come on, George, Richard, his wife was at the concert. He was a board member and then he went, pardon?
Us?
No. Anyway, Dolores DeDito and these group of school board members were very supportive of the Park District. And so I got to know her through years and years of meeting together. In fact, I've mentioned this before. The city council, the school board, and the Park District directors for about 3 years, once a year, would get together just over a informal dinner and just get to know each other and talk about, our community and what it is that, we should probably be thinking of for the future. So Dolores DeDito died on May 31st at the age of 88 in her sleep. She was a resident of Thousand Oaks for 50 years. She and her husband, Vincent, they were always together. He supported her in all the activities in our community and meeting, who is a doctor. Raised their 4 children here in the Conejo Valley. Dolores was a fierce defender of public education. She spent 25 years on the Conejo School Board, several times as president. She traveled to Sacramento as a state education representative, lobbying for quality education for all students. Her many other volunteer activities included the 4-H, PTA, and the Cancer Society. She had a quick wit, for sure, and an outgoing personality and a do for others spirit with a desire to always do the right thing. And I would echo that. She was so full of energy and so energetic about, children and about parks and recreation, et cetera. She was just a joy to be around. And in her later years, she was a devoted docent at the Reagan Presidential Library.
Thank you. And in addition to that, unfortunately, we lost another key member of our community. Larry Horner recently passed away.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Yes,
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Wow.
He served on the city council for 16 years and was mayor 4 times from 1974 to 1990. I remember Larry serving. Actually, I was on staff with the city at the time, and so I was actually handing out packets to him because he was a Costco board member. So I would deliver the packets to his house. And so I interacted with him on Costco and open space issues as well. But I always remember him, of course, attending planning commission meetings back then and also city council meetings. I always remember him as one who had a lot of business and financial acumen and just brought that to the board. I forget where he worked. It was like maybe Rockwell, I think it was. Yeah, over at the Science Center. Very smart man, very highly educated. Just had a lot of wisdom and discernment, and just very even keeled and just a lot of wisdom. Really appreciated his contributions to the community. They've resident of the community for about 50 years, I guess.
That
So
just happened yesterday.
yeah, just recently. Yeah,
Maybe the day before, but
Yeah.
I think I found out yesterday.
yeah, just recently. So again, he was a large contributor to our family, to our community, and part of our elected official family. So we will certainly miss him and appreciate his efforts. So with that, we're going to adjourn in the memory of both Dolores DeDio and Larry Horner and thank them for their contributions. So with that, we will adjourn to August 26th.